job putting the ball in play and scoring runs. They collected hits. That's what they've done for a while now, and they did it well against us. So they beat us all 3 games. I don't feel like we gave a whole lot away, but they just took it to us.
That's what it sounded like yesterday. Ollie Marmol post-game talking about how the Cardinals did not exactly fare well against the Toronto Blue Jays alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Ollie said all along, hey, listen, we went into this homestand and we looked at the series, and there was one that we viewed as being the toughest, and that one being the Blue Jays series. They viewed one as being the second toughest. They viewed that as the Kansas City series. The one that they felt like they could potentially expose a bit was strangely the Dodgers, Alex. And it's because of the way that they matched up with their pitching. If you look at the top 2 teams when it comes to the lowest strikeout rates in Major League Baseball this year, one is Toronto, 2 is Kansas City. You have a severe pitch-to-contact staff. These are teams that make contact up there with the best in the league. Literally, the 2 best teams in the league when it comes to making contact. So it was your weakness against their strength. That's typically not the way that you want to go into these things, right? Styles make fights things. The Chiefs are a very finesse team. The Eagles were a very physical team. What happened in the Super Bowl? They kicked the Chiefs' ass because they out-physicaled them.
Good memories.
So you look at it with the Cardinals over the last, 9 games, 6 of them did not go overly well.
I'd say so.
Was this about the matchup? Or, let's be honest here, could this have been about the Cardinals finally meeting their match? The regression that we all heard nationally people talking about, saying, hey, the regression is coming. This is a pitch-to-contact staff. They are getting a little lucky right now. They're pitching well, but they're getting a little fortunate. What side of that do you feel like is more real, Alex? Was this about the matchups, or was this about, all right, the Cardinals are finally running into the regression that everybody said would come?
This is going to sound, I guess, Cardinals homery, I guess, but I think it was more the matchups. Like, Ollie essentially said it. They were planning for this type of game against the Toronto Blue Jays, and it didn't go in their favor with the pitchers, specifically Miles Mikolas, Andre Pallante, although he pitched okay, and then Matthew Liberatore yesterday. But the Dodgers series, we go back and we look at that one. You won the series, and you're thinking it's like, okay, well, your pitching was awesome. Now, at the end of that series, we were all saying this cannot sustain, especially going 1 for 25 with runners in scoring position is what the Dodgers did in those 2 losses. But it feels like that's how this pitching staff has survived this long. And it just doesn't seem like all of a sudden they're going to start going back to where they were. It feels like when you face these types of teams that don't strike out a lot, that make contact, this is what's going to happen to your team. And sometimes your defense makes plays, sometimes it doesn't make plays. But like, I look at how they played against the Dodgers, I look at how they played against the Milwaukee Brewers earlier this season, and they fared very well in those games. So I don't believe this is the pitching starting to fall back down to earth. Maybe I'm wrong. I just feel like this was the matchups. And if you look at the National League and the teams that you're really fighting with to make the playoffs right now, whether it's the Brewers, the Cubs, the Giants, the Padres, you see the teams that don't strike out a lot that are going to pose problems for you. And then you see the teams that do strike out a lot that might actually benefit the Cardinals.
Yeah, I would lean on the other side of that, if I'm a little bit more worried about the pitching than I think it is about the matchup, though I don't deny that the matchup was not ideal when you have a high-contact team going against a very much contact-oriented pitching staff. But I look at these teams, like you mentioned the Royals, right? Yeah, they are good at making contact. They suck when it comes to scoring runs, and they scored a ton of runs against you, right? Texas is a team that strikes out a lot, so they were not a part of this team. But you go back to that series, Texas bludgeoned you to death. You look at this series against the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays were able to beat you with their offense. So, yeah, some of this is a little bit of the matchups. I also think this is very much a fact of the matter of the pitching is really starting to come down and regress. Like Matthew Liberatore. We were talking about him like 3 starts ago as, boy, this might be like a number 2, maybe a 3 for you. And now I'm watching him over the last couple starts. He's dealing with some velo stuff. And I'm looking at him going, okay, maybe he is more of like a 4 or 5 like Andre Pallante. And if that's the case, like, it really limits what the ceiling of this rotation is. And we've talked about Eric Fedde and his Houdini act, where he walks guys doing his best John Gant impression, and he's coming through and being able to get out of these outings. At some point, that's going to change as well. So I think this is more regression on the pitching staff than it is about solely, oh, this was just a bad matchup for the St. Louis Cardinals. I think that there is a part of that plays into this. But for me, it is more, oh boy, this seems like real warning signs coming for the starting staff.
I think it's a little bit of both, if we're just being honest. Like, that's the real answer here is, yes, it is a little bit of regression. And also, they went up against the wrong teams at the wrong time. I think that's the true answer here. But I was reading Bernie Miklas's piece the other day, and he was writing about the Cardinals pitching and some of the regression that's coming, batted ball luck. Like, nobody wants to acknowledge that that's the case, but it's real. There is batted ball luck in baseball. It happens. When you look at the way that the Cardinals pitchers were getting fortunate early on this season, up until May 29th, they had a 282 batting average on balls in play. Again, typically that's around 300. It's kind of what you'd expect. It changes depending on how hard it's hit and all that stuff, but just knowing over time, you typically expect it to normalize right around 300. Right now, they're at 340 since May 30th. That's crazy. And you may say, okay, BK, they're giving up harder hits. Like, you expect a ball that's hit 105 miles an hour on a line. That's going to have a higher average on average than a 65-mile-an-hour dribbler to second base. Yes, but Bernie has some of the numbers on here. On soft contacts, the Cardinals are giving up a really high average. It's like 295. So they are getting a little unlucky in some of these situations. So I think some of it is regression that's coming. Some of it is, man, you're getting a little bit unlucky. Some of it is you're going up against these teams that are able to take advantage of their opportunities against your pitch to contact pitchers. I want to see what it looks like over time. I never judge any team in Major League Baseball based on what they do in any 3 to 6 game sample size. That's just not a smart way to go about it. You need more time. Baseball is about that longer sample size. Otherwise, Jeremy Hazelbaker would have gone down as a Hall of Famer.
He is in Cardinals
we didn't
history.
Have to throw under the bus like that.
Hazel Raker, am I right?
I want to see what they look like against Milwaukee. I want to see what they look like against the Chicago White Sox. I want to see what they look like against Cincinnati. These are teams that don't have that same ability to put the ball in play as the Royals or the Blue Jays did. So I think you're going to have a pretty telling sign over the next few series.
And this is kind of why I lean the direction that I do, because I to sit there and feel like the pitching is starting to regress, that's where it comes into a long losing streak where it's the same problem occurring over and over and over. Go back a couple of weeks ago, you lose the series to the Tigers, although it felt like you could have won that series. Then you go out and you sweep the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they had one game where they scored more than 3 runs. You win the series against the Orioles. You lose to the Texas Rangers, and that's one that we were like, or there's some warning signs here. You follow that up with, yes, a series loss to the Royals, but we talked about that. A couple of scenarios could have gone different.
2 and 3.
Yeah, but then you go against the Dodgers. And I know the Dodgers was a lot of luck. 1 for 25 with runners in scoring position. But you still won. Like, they find ways to stop the snowball, which is why I'm not going to believe that all of a sudden it's going to turn into what the last couple of years have been for the Cardinals.
The 314 said, really? You don't judge a team based on 6 games? You all drooled over the Cardinals after the Dodgers series. Sure did. Because it was not just the Dodgers series. I mentioned this after that series. It was about their ability to beat good teams overall. I mean, you look back and some of the teams that they've been able to beat, like they took 2 out of 3, not once, but twice against Philadelphia. They won a series against the New York Mets. They won a series already against the Brewers. They beat the Houston Astros. They have found ways. They swept the Minnesota Twins, who are now a pretty good team in the American League. That was early on in the season, but they were pretty good. And they easily could have taken 2 out of 3 against the Tigers. Unfortunately, one of those games went in the other direction. This team is beating good teams on their schedule. They had a clunker. They had a really bad series overall against the Blue Jays. The offense was solid. Yesterday, notwithstanding, overall, the offense was pretty good against Toronto. I'd say I was pretty impressed, honestly, with the way that they were able to take their at-bats against that staff, which has been very good lately. Your pitching just didn't hold up. And honestly, your defense didn't hold up either. Mm-hmm. You did not have a good defensive series against the Blue Jays, and that's coming off of an excellent defensive series for the most part against LA. So I want to see that get back on track. You're going up to Milwaukee. This is a huge series, man. The 3 series that I would pinpoint between now and the All-Star break, this one and then the 2 against the Cubs, those are going to go a long way in determining what you decide to do at the trade deadline. And ultimately, this season for the Cardinals, much like last year, is 2 months shorter than everybody else's for the most part. You get up until July 31st, and there are some huge decisions that have to be made. What do you do with Fedde? What do you do with Matz? What do you do with Helsley? That's the really big one. What do you do with Michaelis? These pending free agents, you have to choose then what you're going to do. And when you make those choices, you decide, are we going to be a contender or not? Because if you trade any or many of those guys, you're not a contender. And you're admitting as much both to the team and to your fan base.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I still think this is a playoff team, though I am the one that is saying that it is more regression than it is the matchup for the Cardinals. The reason that some alarm bells are going off for me is because it is kind of coming at the wrong time, right? Like you mentioned, the Cubs that are coming up. Also, this road trip to Milwaukee, right? This is a big series, a very big series for the Brewers that are right on your tail right now and are playing very good baseball, and you're going into a hitter's ballpark at the same time when your pitching is regressing.
They're going through a little bit of a bad time.
And Milwaukee's also
were playing very good baseball for a while. They have not been good here for a minute. They lost 2 out of 3 against San Diego, and then they just lost 2 out of 3 against Atlanta. Atlanta's no good.
And Milwaukee's not a team like the Blue Jays were, to where like they just make massive contacts 24/7. Like the Cubs would be the series I'd be more concerned about in that aspect. I think the Brewers are a series that, look, your pitching still has to withstand Milwaukee, which is not a fun place to play for this Cardinals team, but if your pitching can do what they've done in terms of stopping snowballs and defense being excellent, your offense can put you in this game without question.
Yeah, the next 3 series that you are in, these teams are below average in strikeout rate.
Yep.
All 3 teams are in the bottom half of the league in their strikeout rate. Milwaukee is 14th worst in that regard. Cincinnati is 12th worst in that regard. And the Chicago White Sox, I'm actually surprised they're this good at it. They're 6th worst in strikeout rate so far this year. So those 3 teams are bottom half of the league in their strikeout rates. You just went up against 1 and 2 with the Royals and the Blue Jays. Alex asked this question. I think it's a fair one, because if we're going to talk about the Cardinals as a potential contender, they will have to beat these teams in the National League. Where do they rank the contenders in the NL in terms of their strikeout rate? You've got the Mets at 3 overall. They have one of the lowest strikeout rates in the league. They're very good. San Diego Padres are scary as well. They're 6th in strikeout rate this season. And then the Philadelphia Phillies are 9th. Dodgers are 10th. I do think it's worth noting, though, like when you look at the overall averages, that's taking everybody into account. Mostly the Dodgers are boosted up by their top 4 in that regard. The rest of their lineup does have some swing and miss, though. You just have to find your way to navigate that top 4 in their lineup. That's what made the Blue Jays such a tough matchup. 1 through 9. They don't swing and miss. Same thing for the Royals, 1 through 9. Now, they'll get themselves out plenty, as we know, by their overall numbers this year offensively, but they're going to put the ball in play, and then it becomes a batted ball game, and it did not go well for the Cardinals in that regard. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You guys can always check us out on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That's where Bill, Gator, Frick, Hal, they're all hanging out over there. iRock in there as well. If you guys would like to join, check them out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. In 15 minutes, how should the Blues approach Joel Hofer this offseason with his RFA status? We'll get into that at 11:30. But next, is it time for the Cardinals to consider a lineup shuffle with Noot moving down? And if so, what does that mean for Noot Bar? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
with a young group, you're going to have your ups and downs, and every guy's going to go through some version of this, right? Noot's in the middle of a grind right now, and it'll end at some point, and we'll move on to somebody else that's not doing well, right? That's how the game works. But right now, it's on him. It's good to come alongside of him, and I want to see him get through this.
That's what Ollie Marmol had to say yesterday after the game. Lars Nootbaar is now 1 for his last 24. He has 13 strikeouts in those 24 at-bats. It's going really poorly for him right now. Yesterday, after the off day, Alex, 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts. The strikeouts are the biggest thing to me. That's not what you typically expect out of Lars Nootbaar. So you know he's going through it, and you know that right now your offense is suffering a bit as a result. Now, the offense was good over the course of this series for the most part. Yesterday, again, set that aside for a moment. But in general, the offense has been fine, really, lately. You look back to that Kansas City series. In losses, you scored 7 runs and 5 runs. In the series starting out the first couple of games, you scored 4 and 9 runs against the Blue Jays. So you're finding ways to make up for Nootbaar's lack of production. But it's pretty glaring when this is at the top of your lineup. And so it begs the question. I saw this over at Redbird Rants. I know that there are a lot of people on social media discussing it as well. Alex, in your opinion, is it time for the Cardinals to consider a lineup shift with Nootbaar bumping down from that top spot?
Probably. I hate the idea of moving in. I think I said earlier this week I wouldn't touch it because right now they're still finding ways to win. But obviously you did not do that in this Blue Jays series. The hard part with this is the injuries that you're dealing with right now of Donovan and no Jordan Walker. Your depth is starting to really wane thin, and how do you construct that lineup? But you do have guys who can hit in the leadoff spot. Do you like it? No, but they can do it. Mason Wynn being the one we're speaking about here. I do think when you make this change, it starts to shorten the lethalness of your offense that we've talked so highly about. But you can't keep throwing that out there. That's the tone setter for a game. That's the tone setter for a series of having Lars Nootbaar. And it just feels like he's kind of in this free swinging mode to where you're trying to hit things that are going far outside. He's trying to make hard contact. You're just not seeing it with Lars Nootbaar. The confidence is starting to shift. So, yeah, give him a little bit of a break. Move him down to take some of the pressure off of that leadoff spot.
T-Bone, do you think that it's time to move him down?
I think it is. I think because the offense is the identity of this team, and you're seeing Nootbaar really go through this now to where it has been more than a month. We're almost at about a month and a half to where he is struggling and not getting on base. I think you have to explore it, especially now that you're kind of starting to go through a funk where you're 4 and 8 in their last 12. I think you have to look at it. If Donovan's healthy and he's available tonight, I think to me you shift him to the top.
He's not expected to be available tonight.
And if he's not, but that's who I think is the answer probably for this when he comes back. If he's not tonight, I think you do what they did 2 games ago when they gave Nootbaar the day off, which is, hey, Wynn kind of bumps up into that leadoff spot and you move Nootbaar down, and anywhere between like the 6 to 7 range is what I think you have to do. But yeah, I think it's time to start exploring this because you can't have the offense go through a rut, right? Because the pitching's going to be probably maybe not this bad, but it's going to be about middle of the pack is probably best case scenario for the pitching staff as a whole. Your offense needs to remain probably in that top 10-ish range in terms of OPS for you to be a team that's going to get away with this kind of a pitching staff that pitches to contact. So when the offense goes through a rut, you have to be willing to make these changes. I'd like to see them do it tonight.
I saw Kyle Reese ask this on Twitter. I don't know the answer. This has to be the longest that Nootbaar's gone in his career without an IL stint, right? And we're 68 games into the season.
Typically for him, it's like the second or third. It's typically like the second month of the season, I thought.
And a lot of the time he has a tough start. He did not get off to as tough of a start this season, which has been encouraging. But he's played in 65 games so far this year.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if some of this is just like, hey, man, it's a long season. And in his career, here are his game played numbers at the major league level. 108, 117, 109. If we're just being candid, he's not used to this. I don't know where he's at with his body. I don't know where he's at physically and mentally, but I have to imagine some of this is just, dude, it can be exhausting playing a full like 155 game season. And I don't blame them for playing him the way that they did. It's the right thing to do. And you just have to go out there and, hey, man, if he's running on fumes, now is when you start getting him some of that rest. But it was the stated goal This guy needs to be available. Like the number one goal for Lars Nootbaar coming into the season was just to be available. He's been that so far. Unfortunately, they might now be paying the price when it comes to, okay, that availability has led to some running on fumes situation here. So hopefully he's able to get back on track. I do agree with you guys. I think Mason Wynn's probably your best option as a leadoff hitter while Donnie is out. I put together what I would go with tonight against a hard-throwing, right-handed starter for the Brewers. He's making his debut tonight. Should be a lot of fun to watch. Tomorrow they go up against Peralta, another right-handed pitcher. So this would be my lineup, again, if Donnie is unavailable, which is currently the expectation for the next couple of days. I'd go Mason Wynn at leadoff. Alec Burleson would be my two-hole hitter. Lefty in there against a right-handed pitcher, and Burleson's been really good lately. I'd play him in right field. Herrera as your DH batting third, Contreras playing first, batting cleanup. And then I don't think you have a good 5 spot right now. I don't think there is a good option for what I'm about to say. I think I would go with Gorman as your 5-hole hitter right now.
You're swinging a hot bat. Whether you like that option or not, the last 5 games version of Nolan Gorman, that's at least a 5 or a 6-hole hitter for you.
Yeah, ideally I would want him like 6-7 in this lineup, but while Donovan is out, I think 5 is probably where I would put him, especially against a right-handed pitcher, but this is not a guy that he would profile well against. I just don't know that you have another alternative that you're feeling great there. Arenado for me would be batting 6th, then Noot 7, Pages 8, Scott 9. That's the way that I would construct this lineup right now. I think that's probably the best version with Donovan out.
I like that one. I think that's the way to go. Here's just a tinfoil question. Would you consider putting Noot in between Herrera and Contreras to give him
like batting cleanup?
Yeah, put him in there. Just to give him a little protection in between both to where maybe you see a little bit more ideal pitches.
This is my thing with Nootbaar. Like, it's why I think bumping him down in the lineup is really hard. You almost have to have him in the bottom 3. Dude, his lack of an average does not hurt you in the leadoff spot because you want that on base up there. Those walks are really valuable when he's getting on for Burleson, Herrera, Contreras, Arenado, Donovan. Those guys can drive him in. But where that lack of an average does start to show up is when you put him into a run-producing spot where you've got him 3, 4, 5, 6 in your lineup. Now you have Wynn, Burleson, Herrera, Contreras, those guys potentially on for him. You're asking him to drive them in. That's not Lars Nootbaar's game, man. His game is to get on, not to drive other runners in. So I would not want him anywhere close to the 3, 4, 5 spots in my lineup. I don't think he profiles that way at all.
I was just thinking maybe you can see a little bit more ideal pitches to you because you've got 2 guys who are swinging such hot bats in between and Herrera, just to get a little bit more confidence in there for Nootbaar.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from on that aspect because at times I think that does make sense for
most
players.
Importantly, I think you see fewer lefties. In the spot that you're talking about, that's how you could get him away from the left-handed pitchers, because if you put him like above Pages and Scott, they're going to attack you with lefties at the bottom of that lineup towards the end of the game.
Yeah, the other issue for him, though, too, right now is the fact that he's chasing out of the zone quite a bit. Like, that's part of the reason he's going through this rut is he is chasing more and not taking those pitches to draw those walks. So even if, in theory, you are looking to get more pitches in the zone, I'm not sure pitchers are going to do that based on the way that Nootbaar is swinging it. So that's why I think you almost have to shoot him lower than 5. And I think you have to go with, to your point, Gorman at 5, because then you can really avoid stacking up 3 out of 4 lefties at the bottom of your order with Gorman, Nootbaar, and Scott. Because if you hit Arenado 5th, who's been swinging a good bat as well with Gorman, but if you did Gorman 6, well, now you're looking at 3 or 4 lefties in a row.
Exactly.
So like that's why you almost have to go with Gorman in that 5 spot.
Yeah, it's not ideal. You know, right now with Donovan out of the lineup, it reminds you the importance of having that guy. You know, like when you have Donovan, everything else becomes
Sounds
a lot
like an
easier.
MVP to me.
Donovan bats first, then you go Wynn, probably Herrera, Contreras, and then Burleson becomes your 5-hole hitter, which makes so much more sense. Yeah. And then you've got like Arenado, Gorman, and then it's a lot of lefties at the bottom, but Nootbaar, Scott, Pages kind of at the bottom of your order, depending on how you want things to be constructed there. It gets really tough with your outfield. Like, you might have to give Nootbaar some time off here, where Donovan is playing in left, Nootbaar ends up getting some time off, and Gorman becomes the guy that gets those opportunities right now because he's swinging a better bat.
Yeah, otherwise, you don't have that spot for Gorman, right? Because the whole reason we can get Gorman in the lineup tonight using the mindset of Donovan's not going to be in is because Donovan's not in it. So if you want to get his bat in, then yeah, you probably do have to start looking at the idea of, okay, let's get Noot some more days off. Or if you want to put Herrera behind the plate, but they've seemed to show no inkling of, hey, we still like Baez as a game caller. So I don't think they're going to make that pivot all of a sudden. The offense isn't struggling that bad to where you have to make that move just yet.
The other thing on all of this, like we mentioned that lefty lane that you're potentially opening up, especially over the next couple of days. The Brewers have 4 left-handed relievers that they have available, so they're never going to run out of options to go at those guys with lefties in this series. You need to improve this bench starting tonight. I don't know what their plan is with the roster. Like they've probably already, I would have to imagine, they've already made the move and we just aren't aware of it publicly yet. But if they don't go into this game with a new and improved version of the bench, that would be highly disappointing, man. Whether that's Valade going back down or I think Barrero, it's past time to send him down to the minor leagues. Even if that means you have to like expose him to waivers, so be it, man. Sorry. I appreciate the time, but they've got to improve that spot. Whether that be JC, Luke and Baker, I think can have a role on this team. You've got to improve that bench, and I would like to see them bring up another right-handed reliever as well. But that's a different conversation, I suppose, and we'll see if they're able to do any of those things prior to the game today. It's time. It's time. You got to put your best foot forward, dude. This is a big series.
Yeah, and especially because, like you said it best in the open, like they don't have till October, right? Like their season, they're like kind of playing playoff baseball, and it kind of starts tonight when you get, I think it's like 17 games in the final stretch going into the trade deadline or against division opponents. Like, yeah, this is a huge series for you, right? You lose 3 or 4 to Milwaukee, and then all of a sudden in a week and a half you drop 2 or 3 to the Cubs. Yeah, good luck, right? Like all of a sudden now you really are looking up, and now you really set yourself in a spot to be sellers. And again, why are we playing with a 24-man roster, right? Like, can't we just bring up 2 right-handed bats that really help you in this scenario if you're the St. Louis Cardinals? That way you can maximize this 26-man.
Yeah, I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me, but this is where we're at. He's T-Bone. That's Alex. I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. We're going to do something a little different coming up at 12 o'clock. David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period is going to join us. We're going to play a Tender Thursday with David Pagnotta. He's going to join the show. He's one of the national insiders. He's got all of the speculation out there on the trade market. We're going to throw some names his way, and he's going to swipe right or left for us on whether or not he thinks they're a fit for the Blues and what he believes it would take for the Blues to acquire said player. So we'll get into that with David Pagnotta coming up at 12 o'clock. But next, we will talk about the Blues. How should they be approaching Joel Hofer this offseason? We've got some insight from Frank Saravalli. You'll be able to hear that next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday 5-2 as they got swept by Toronto. And tonight they head to Milwaukee where they'll start a 4-game set with the Brewers. Sonny Gray will be on the mound for St. Louis. 6:40 will be first pitch. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, coming up here in about 20 minutes, we'll be joined by David Pagnotta of the fourth period. He has some really good insight into what's going on free agency-wise, trade-wise. He talks with all the teams across the league. He's going to play a game of Tinder Thursday with us, so we're excited for that. David Pagnotta in about 20 minutes. But right now, I do want to talk a little bit about Joel Hofer. Alex, this is something that's been kind of bubbling under the surface. I don't know how big of a story it's actually going to become, but the Blues backup goalie is an RFA this offseason, which means, technically speaking, somebody could offer sheet him. They could do to the Blues what the Blues did to the Oilers last year. And this is something that was brought up by Frank Saravalli on the Daily Faceoff live show the other day. Take a listen.
But if you're a team that doesn't have the positional box checked in your organization, is looking for someone young that you can grow with, what about, I wouldn't say a 4 or 5 year deal, I'd say 2 years. Because then what it does is you also walk him to the end of his RFA years, or toward the end, 1 more year remaining, and you force whatever team, yourself or St. Louis, to then qualify the player at that number. So 2 times 4.8. The Blues don't have really many cap space considerations. It's not a problem, but do they want to spend almost $11 million on goaltending that you're in a year in which he probably is only projected to play 30 or 35 games with Binnington playing the rest, that maybe you just say, as much as it sucks, we'll take the second round pick for Hofer and move on and play Binnington. I just think Hofer has a ton of promise.
I don't think 4.8's happening because that would put you into the first and a third round comp pick category. I don't think anybody's doing that. I think they would go right up to the limit, what the Blues did last year with Broberg, where it's 4.6. That gets you a second round pick if you're the Blues. But it is an intriguing question, man. If you're in the Blues' shoes and you can't get something done with Hofer, and we don't know where this is going to go, Alex, but if you, for whatever reason, can't come to an agreement, and he is offer sheeted by somebody else, and they come in with a 2-3 years, $4.65 million offer. Are you willing to spend almost $11 million on Binnington and Hofer over the next couple of years? Because that's what it would be.
Let me ask you a question on top of your question. You know how many teams in the NHL pay their goaltending tandem north of $10 million?
I have no idea. I would imagine it's... This is a BK game because I could see this going either direction.
Ooh, but it's not a BK game because I know what direction BK typically goes.
I'll say like
game.
5.
There's a couple goalies that I'll say 4.
3.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
We're
the
close.
New York Rangers, and it's because Shesterkin's making north of 10, but the goalie with him is 1. Vasilevsky was making 9.5, and their other goalie's making 1.5, and then the Florida Panthers, Bobrovsky's making 10.
So nobody is actually doing what we're talking about here.
Vancouver is the closest, and it's Demko makes 5.5, and Lankinen makes 4.5.
Okay,
so
that's
that would be
yeah.
But that's under 10 mil. Like, teams typically don't want to pay north of $10 million for a goaltending tandem. Now, the cap, of course, is going up, but I mean, you're talking at least a percentage that's too high than what it should be with a goaltending to put together a great team. So I think Frank Saravalli is spot on. I think a lot of Blues fans were worried about Jake Neighbors being offer sheeted, when all the while I think Joel Hofer was the one that was like, this guy, I told you in the office, you know which would make this so poetic. Who could offer sheet Joel Hofer and really bleep the Blues over? Edmonton. Because Edmonton's got Stuart Skinner who's up and down, and they don't have a backup. Like, that's a team that could do that. So, to be honest with you, I don't think it's a worry from Doug Armstrong, because I would imagine they have a deal that they want to get done, and it's just a matter of does Joel Hofer want to accept it or, go back and forth with this one. But by the time you hit July 1st and offer sheets start to come in, yeah, it could be a concern. And if I'm the Blues, I think I might realistically have to walk away from that because I don't know if I can pay Hofer $4.5 million on top of Binnington making $6 million already.
I don't think you get yourself into a spot where he's an offer sheet candidate. I think if you can't come to terms on a deal, you trade him. I think that's the way you have to operate this offseason.
It's a realistic thought process.
And whether that means packaging him to go get something that you're in need of or sending him elsewhere for a second-round pick that's maybe more attractive than from a team like Edmonton, right? Because Edmonton's pick will be incredibly late in that second round. It'll maybe be the last pick in that second round. You could go to another team. Edmonton, by the way, does not have their second this year, so they couldn't be a team that does this. But somebody like that could come in and be like, hey, you know what? We're going to go ahead and take a chance on this guy that we think is a legit number one goalie. I think you'd have to go shop him around if you get to that spot. I have to imagine they'll be able to find a way to get this thing done.
I do too.
Couple $1 million, $2 to $3 million for a couple of years. You get him back to that final year of RFA status, and then you can make a call then, because that would be leaving the final year of Benner's current deal when you would get to the end of the Hofer deal, and then you make your decision on what your future looks like at the goaltender's position. But, man, it is a really fascinating discussion on if you got yourself stuck.
Yeah.
Because they do, like, the cap considerations are real this offseason, man.
The Blues are in the Edmonton Oilers spot last year. Like, I know they don't have a lot of offer sheet guys and where they don't have any wiggle room, but they've got $5 million pre-LTIR status, and they've got to lock up Hofer, and if they want to re-sign Radek Faksa.
It's all about the cash.
Yeah.
If you're good with the cash as an owner, you're in a fine spot. You have like $11 million to spend this offseason, so you're totally cool. If you're unwilling to spend that cash, and we just don't know, right? It's a lot to consider if you're an ownership group in a small to mid-market like St. Louis. That's where things get tight.
Yeah.
That's where it gets a little dicey. And if you're unwilling to buy out Matthew Joseph, if you don't want to send them through waivers, because this is also part of the consideration, is the roster spots for that forward group. If you bring in Faksa and still want to improve at center, now you're talking about being like $15 million more than what the cap is potentially, or $10 million more than what the cap is on what you're spending cash-wise. Whew. That starts to add up pretty quickly, man.
Yeah, and, the other factor into this, like the historical side, Saravalli mentioned this. There's never been a goaltender that has signed an offer sheet successfully in the salary cap era.
Only two have even signed an offer sheet.
And one, I can't even pronounce his name, and the other is Ron Tugnut. So we're talking like the 90s that we're in this category with. So it doesn't happen very often, but I could say the same thing about offer sheets getting accepted the way that Doug pulled it off this past offseason. But you do have to take into context the goaltender side of this one, because the offer sheets only work if the other guy is willing to sign that contract and go to the team. And, man, goaltending is so weird because you can look at it and say, I want to get paid, but you can go to another team that's not the same defensive structure with the same goaltending coach and have a bad 2 years in that offer sheet, and then you could become Ville Husso in the minor leagues and not get back 100%. To the NHL. So sometimes offer sheets aren't as sexy as you think they are if you're a goaltender. So I'm not worried about it, but it is at least something to have into the back of your mind.
It's also why, if you're a fan, because sometimes I think people get frustrated with this stuff, and I don't blame you. If you're a fan and you start seeing Hofer's name thrown out there in speculation about potential trades, this is probably why people are doing that. That doesn't mean he's likely to be traded, but he's in a position where players like this sometimes get dealt.
Yeah.
When you have organizational depth the way that the Blues do in net, and you have a cap crunch-ish, the way that the Blues somewhat do, depending on their willingness to spend in the cash side of things, like all of this could add up for other teams to be like, okay, yeah, that's clearly a trade target. It's why people are talking about Jason Robertson with the Stars, right? He's not in this exact same spot as an RFA, but he will get into RFA status next year, and so if they want to get their biggest haul possible, this is the time where you would want to do that. He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers is coming up next. T-Bone, you're doing stuff. You're fine.
Yeah. Phil Maton would
I'll say
probably be
Maton.
mine.
Yeah.
He's the one that I don't get tight butt cheeks with when he takes the mound. Other than that, Leahy's out of it. I know you guys are fine with Helsley.
I was about to say.
Helsley still makes me a little skittish right now.
I can't, in good faith for what the circle of trust is supposed to be, say that Helsley is in my circle of trust.
Because you get
right
tight butt cheeks when he takes the mound.
Correct.
Yeah.
I get nervous.
Mats, I get nervous. What's weird about it is Jojo Romero actually has been pretty solid when he goes out there.
Some of that's usage. Like, he is being used in the exact kind of way that you would want to utilize Jojo Romero. He's not being asked to be something more than what he is, which is a lefty specialist.
So, I mean,
yeah, he's been really good this year.
Guess you could put him in there if you wanted to, but
Sure.
like I'd get tight butt cheeks if you put him out there in any other role than what he's in right now.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
He's being asked to be this, and he's really good against lefties this year. They have a 172 batting average against.
Yeah.
Just don't ask him to go against righties. They're batting 300 against him.
That's fine.
So.
You got one role and that's it. But yeah, so I would say Maton for sure. And I could hear the argument if or if not Romero, but for the role he's playing, I could put Romero in there.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, help me out. If you buy a round of beers for the boys, shouldn't that be reciprocated throughout the rest of the group going forward? I don't think it should be expected that that's the case.
Yeah, if you do something nice and expect it in return, then the whole point of you doing something nice shouldn't matter.
Yeah, I would say if you go in and you're like, hey, I got the first round, boys. Like that, you just got the first round. That doesn't mean that other people had already expected to get that.
Right.
You did something nice for the guys. But if you get it and then another buddy does it, I think typically what ends up happening is, all right, we'll kind of take our round.
Yeah.
I think that's just common courtesy, but you can't expect that. You chose to do that.
Yeah, that's like going, and I guess it's different because these are guys that you're seeing on a regular basis, but that's like going and paying for somebody's food at a fast food place, and then the next time you go to the fast food place, you expect somebody to pay for you.
I will say, if I'm in a friend group and somebody says, I'll get the first round, my typical response to that, if I'm not that guy, is I will get the next round, right? So
Now, if it is a friend group, you can give them ish that they didn't purchase the next round.
Or if you've always got a guy that's seemingly like, oh, man, I just didn't get to it this time. I'll get you guys next time. If you always have a friend that is in that spot, that's...
like when we golf, like the group that I golf with, my dad, my brother-in-law, my cousin, like everybody buys drinks for the round of golf. And so the one guy that doesn't buy the drinks, and we kind of give him ish about it. So
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, how many more seasons do you think it'll be before the Blues have a player making at least $10 million per year on their roster? I mean, 5?
Yeah, it's going to have to be somebody that they sign in free agency or trade for, because I don't think anybody on this roster is going to make north of $10 million.
Unless Dvorsky becomes a superstar, in which case, he could.
But even that, I mean, you're talking probably more than 5. But
one other scenario for you. If they did a bridge, like a true bridge deal, 2 years with Holloway could get himself into that conversation.
He'd have to score 40 goals. He'd have to be 35, 40 goals. No,
I don't think so.
I think he's got to be 40. I think he'd ask for it, but I don't know if the Blues would pay him that.
If he got to 30 goals consistently over the next couple of seasons and was basically the same player as he was this year, forecheck, all of that other stuff that he brought to the table, I think he could realistically look at the market, given what we're going to see over the next couple of seasons with free agency, and say, my comparables are making 12 plus.
Yeah.
I deserve at least 10, and I think he'd probably be right. So there are some guys that could fit themselves into that criteria. Holloway probably being the most likely one to do so, and that's why you try to sign him longer term for less money.
If you were to ask me between those two who'd be more likely to get it, I'd actually think it'd be Broberg. Because if he's playing 24 minutes a night next season as a top pair-esque guy and you put up points and have significant numbers, he's the one that could look around the market and be like, these guys are making whatever Evan Bouchard makes this offseason from Edmonton. If Broberg has another stellar season and stays healthy and puts up a little bit more offense, I think he's going to look at Evan Bouchard and be like, I should be close to this.
That was what I was going to say. His point total did not end up being what you wanted it to be this year.
But look at it before he was injured.
Sure.
He was on that pace.
He's got to do that twice.
Yep.
If he does that over the next couple of years, yeah, now we can talk about it. But he had 29 points this year. He was excellent. I'm not trying to diminish what he accomplished, but 29 points ain't exactly an Evan Bouchard season.
No.
He's like 50, 60 points.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to boost the point total up quite a bit. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Guys, between Falk and Letty, who do you think is more likely to be traded this offseason?
Letty.
I agree.
I know people don't like Justin Falk. We've talked about this already this week. Like, I think Falk is better defensively, was better defensively this year than what he's been in the past. Some of that could be Broberg. You're not trading Falk unless somebody absolutely desires Justin Falk, because then you're paying to get rid of Falk.
Last thing here from the 314. Guys, where would the Pacers winning the NBA Finals rank among the most surprising professional sports title contenders in recent memory? 2019 Blues would be up there.
Yeah.
If we're just talking about like surprises going into the game that nobody saw coming and they found a way to make it work. I mean, the Pistons in, what was that, 05? The White Sox that same year would be up
Rockies
there.
Didn't win it.
The
but they
Cardinals
got
in
there.
06 were this.
Yeah.
Even 11, I'd say.
11.
Less so in 11, but definitely in 06. 11 was a surprising run, but once they got to the World Series, I think that was, am I wrong on this, kind of close to a coin flip series against Texas?
I thought
they were
Texas
underdog.
was pretty well favored.
Texas had a lot of players where you saw them and you're like, how are you going to, like Josh Hamilton?
This would be
What was the
one of the
what was
biggest surprises, though. I mean, they were 7-1 to win the title going into this thing. If you just looked at the Vegas odds.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Them winning last night was shocking, and it was convincing. They were just a better team.
Milwaukee Bucks weren't surprising when they won it, were they?
No. Yeah. I can't think
I can't think of any others.
The Cavs were a huge underdog going into their series against the Warriors, so that could be one as well.
I had LeBron on it, though. That'd be hard to
that's what's
surprise.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because, like, if you looked at somebody and said the Indiana Pacers.
Oh, Giants
I was
against
just about
Patriots,
to bring that one up. Yeah, when they took them down.
Is it the Raptors? The Toronto Raptors?
Eagles with Nick Foles would be up there as well. The Philly special season.
Who did the Raptors beat? I don't remember.
Wasn't that
They were pretty good, though. Like, they had
Warriors.
Kawhi.
That was the Warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kawhi.
I mean, it would have been a surprise.
It was
but they still
Kawhi, though,
had
that
Kawhi.
carried that team.
Yeah.
That was one guy versus three.
Yeah. I would put that one up there because that one was pretty shocking.
I think this would rank number one for me.
If you look at the common basketball fan and said the Indiana Pacers are 2 wins away from an NBA championship, they'd be like, no, they're not. Yeah. No, they're not. That's
I
the
think
Pacers.
part of it that makes it feel like it's less of a surprise is that Oklahoma City is. People get mad at me. They don't have that known superstar. Shea plays like a superstar. His basketball pedigree is that of a superstar. But in terms of, like, he's not at the name recognition of LeBron. He's not at the name recognition of Steph, etc. He needs to win in order to get there. He will, I think, eventually. But that's why it maybe for some people doesn't feel quite as big of an upset. But the Vegas odds tell you this is a huge upset in every possible way. It's been a lot of fun to watch so far. He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, David Pagnotta will join the show. He works for the Fourth Period. He's one of the best insiders in the game, and he's going to play a game of Tinder Thursday with us. We're going to go through some trade and free agency candidates for the St. Louis Blues. He's going to tell us if he would swipe right or left on those candidates and what it would take for the Blues to acquire those players. We'll talk about that next with David Pagnotta here at BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the editor-in-chief of The Fourth Period. He is David Pagnotta joining us here on the show. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. We like playing our Tender Tuesday, Tender Thursday game, and we're going to do that with David Pagnotta. David, first of all, we appreciate the time, appreciate you entertaining us with this. Do you have an understanding of how Tinder works nowadays?
Yes. It's been a while since I've been on it, but or used it, but
sure.
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
That's all right, David. Every time I play this game, and we've been playing this game for like 2 years now, I still don't understand the rules.
He's never once gotten it right.
Yeah, I'm just never understanding of it.
The way this is going to work is we'll swipe right if you like it. We swipe left if you do not, just like you would over on Tinder. We're going to throw some names toward David Pagnotta. He'll kind of give us an idea of if he likes the fit here in St. Louis and what he thinks it would take to be able to get something like that done. David, let's start out with the free agency market because that seems to always be the easiest way, right? You don't have to give up the assets like you would in a trade. And one of the big names center-wise on the market this offseason, maybe, depending on what happens with his current team, is John Tavares. David, would you swipe right or left on John Tavares' fit here in St. Louis?
I'm probably swiping left.
Ooh.
That's a no-go for me.
Is it cost, David, or is it the type of player he is in terms of fitting in St. Louis?
I think it's a combo. I think it's to allocate, $5-6 million to him, to have him, you've got, your top two options already up the middle. You can slot him on the left side if you need to, but you've got options there as well. I don't think that's a guy that I would go after, a guy who's going to be 35 when the season gets going. I'm probably not going in that direction.
All right, another free agent then, David, was on the Carolina Hurricanes, kind of a middle six center type of guy. Jack Roslovic, left or right?
If I can get him on a decent price, I'll swipe right. Because if you're going to shore up your bottom six, and you got a guy who's a little bit versatile, can play center, as you said, but also you can slot him on the wing if needed. If the price is right, if the dollar amount's right, then I'm probably going to swipe right on him for the bottom six.
The publicly available projections on stuff like this is always a little bit, you never know where it's going to end up, but he's at like 3x4 in some of the publicly available models. Is that about what you're thinking? What makes sense for him?
Yeah, probably in that range. That might be on the high end, for me, but probably somewhere in that vicinity. If you're looking to really, and that's where the market is going now because of the cap going up, what the cap structure is like. To get somebody that's of his caliber for your third line, for example, you're probably in that dollar range.
All right, next one up that I've got for you, and this is my last free agent that I'm curious about. I know Alex has one that I'll be curious your thoughts on. Pius Suter, 28 years old, centerman for Vancouver. I like the idea. Alex very much does not. Are you swiping right or left on Pius Suter for the St. Louis Blues?
See, I would rather swipe right on him than Roslovic.
Wow. Okay.
Again, for like he's got more offensive game to him. And again, if you're looking at that third line or your mid six, and that's where you want to kind of emphasize bolstering, I think I would go in that direction.
All right, one more free agent then, David, and it's a guy that really it's his decision. He's narrowing the teams down. Jonathan Taves.
Yes, I would swipe right on him, but with the understanding that he's going to be a third line kind of guy, because I think the price is going to be right for teams that are looking at him, that have interest in him, and he's narrowing down his choices. I spoke to people in his circle earlier this week. He wants to make a decision before or around the draft. He's somebody that's going to slot in as a third line center, and with the potential of moving up. And you can, the way he is at 37, you can kind of structure his contract bonus laden, base salary plus bonuses if he hits certain marks. for me, for the third line, that's a player that I would definitely go after and swipe on.
From your conversations, David, with his circle, is his goal to find a team to win a Stanley Cup with right away, or is his goal to just go with a team that he meshes well with?
No, he wants to win.
Okay.
There's no question. He wants to be a contributor on a winning club. He feels he can be. So if it's a contender, a team that's chasing a cup, he wants to add to that, and he feels he's back and ready to do so.
All right, let's go over to the trade market. We're talking with David Pagnotta. You can find his great work over on The Fourth Period. That's where he is on Twitter as well, at The Fourth Period. One of the guys that we've been talking a lot about recently is Alex Tuch. His name has been bandied about out there. He's a winger, not a center, so it would require some extra maneuvering from the Blues as well, maybe a potential move for Jordan Kyrou, for example. Would you swipe right or left on the Blues acquiring a guy like Alex Tuch and potentially extending in thereafter, David?
I would. I think every team would swipe right on Alex Tuch. What he brings to the table from an offensive side of things, to combo that with his physical nature and the way that he plays the game is. I mean, you look at the teams that are competing for championships. You got to have that edge, to the lineup, and he's a guy that would certainly be on the radar of a lot of teams. If there's an opportunity to plug in this type of player, depending on what the cost is, he's entering the final year of his contract as well. I would definitely take a look at that if I'm the Blues and there's an opportunity to acquire him or a player like him. I'm swiping right all day.
Another player from Buffalo, David, that I've been really excited about, it's a centerman, Ryan McLeod, formerly with the Oilers, obviously traded to the Buffalo Sabres. Left or right on Ryan McLeod?
I think with how the Blues are structured right now, and you can slot Holloway in the middle if you need to, and you have Sundqvist. If you're looking at other options, I would probably put all my resources in a different direction. So I would probably swipe left on him.
Okay. On Tuch, just out of curiosity, a quick follow up on that. What kind of a return do you think Buffalo would be looking for? Like, are they looking for NHL-ready players? Would they be looking for prospects and picks?
Yeah.
What do you think they'd be wanting?
Yeah, and we're going to hear a lot more about the Sabres over these next few weeks leading into the draft, and his name's going to circulate. Bowen Byram's name is out there. There are other assets that they have that they're either talking on or willing to listen on, but they want to start getting to that playoff mentality. They want to get to start shifting their way in that direction. They didn't bring in Jarmo Kekalainen as an advisor and Eric Stahl to help insulate the management team just to go through another potential rebuild or anything along those lines. So if you're moving a player, making a move for a player like Tuch or Byram or whomever, they want NHL caliber talent. They're going to try to improve their roster and add some ammo to it so that they can push towards the postseason and make a play towards the playoffs next year.
All right, next thing up for you, David. A guy that has been bandied about this offseason already as a potential trade option as Boston goes through whatever the heck it is that they're going through right now is Pavel Zacha, a 27-year-old center. Yeah. He has a history under Jim Montgomery, certainly. Would you swipe right or left on adding Pavel Zacha to the Blues lineup?
I would probably, if I'm moving a guy like Shen to the wing, and I want to bring in somebody else on at the center dot, and it's not Holloway, and I'm looking at the second line, I'm probably going to swipe right on him. I think he's got 2 years left on his contract. I think the number's around 4.5 for his capabilities, for what he brings to the table. Again, as that 2C kind of position, I would take a shot at seeing what the price tag is and seeing if that's an option for me. So I would swipe right on Zacha and seeing what the price tag would ultimately be. He is available. He's on our trade watch list. The Bruins are going through a quasi rebuild, I think we all think. I don't even know if they fully know, but there are going to be some. Yeah. There's some interesting storylines that will come out of Boston later this month as we get another team as we get close to the draft time.
All right, David. I have one team with two players on it, and there's been back and forth in terms of speculation if either of these guys are available. But as we know, the Vegas Golden Knights always like to make big moves and ship guys out. William Karlsson or Nicholas Waugh?
Ooh, I would probably swipe right on both. In terms of just the players themselves and what they're capable of and bring to the table. Karlsson's a very, very good two-way center. Very, very strong defensively, which is why Vegas likes him so much. And his name, yes, is out there because of their cap proximity. And, teams are looking to see what, the price tag would be and if they can strike while the iron's hot, so to speak. For what he's capable of producing on the ice, both, again, defensively and offensively, and where you're looking at now, again, going back to the market, how everything is trending upwards at a $5.9 million cap hit, that's certainly a player that would be of intrigue to me. So, yeah, definitely swiping right on him and Nick Waugh as well. For a bottom six, for a guy that's got a little jam and can be an energy type player for you at a $3 million cap, and I think he's somewhere around there. That's a quality ad for a bottom six.
All right, last one that I've got for David Pagnotta, editor-in-chief of The Fourth Period. You can check out all of his work over there, including what he mentioned, the trade board, which is available for you right now. Charlie Coyle, a guy that spent, again, a decent amount of time under Jim Montgomery out in Boston, spent a little bit of last season with Colorado. He's under contract. They've got some cap considerations that they're going through right now. Would you swipe right or left on Charlie Coyle as a trade asset for the Blues?
I'd swipe left in that direction. I'd rather go after some of the other targets we talked about. He's been kind of up and down the last little bit. He's no spring chicken. He's been around a while. He's 33, 34, somewhere in that range. The cap hit isn't bad. It's just over $5 million. But with the way, like, his production for me is the question mark. And I don't know if that's a guy that I would want to go after. He did rebound and did play well after he got traded to Colorado. Was a little bit, was productive, but again, it's been kind of up and down over the last few years for him. So I don't know if I would go in that direction.
So David, just bigger picture as we wrap up here, all these guys we've thrown out there specifically on the trade market, like you always ask the question follow-up wise, like what's it going to cost? I've already seen the rumors of potentially does Jordan Kyrou get moved this offseason? Do you think Kyrou could be a piece that the Blues dangle out there, or do they have pieces that they could pull off big trades this offseason?
I think there would be a willingness to listen on Kyrou. I know his name's been out there kind of circulating before, but it's only been if this team is going to make a big type of blockbuster splash that he would be available. I haven't heard really much else in that regard. We know his no trade kicks in July 1, so that's also a bit of a factor. That's why we're probably going to hear Elias Pettersson's name in Vancouver a little bit more, because his full no move kicks in July 1 as well. So usually when you get to that level, to that point of someone's contract, there's always the prospect of, hey, let's just see what else is out there. Is the grass greener on the other side? Can we get a better player if we package a guy like Kyrou up? He rebounded a little bit this season offensively. I still think they hold him, in high regard. The only way Kyrou's getting dealt in my estimation is you're talking about blockbuster. You're talking about a big impact player coming back the other way. We'll see what Armstrong and Steen have up their sleeve if they go in that direction. But I don't see a scenario where moving him for anything other than that would fit the mindset of the Blues at this point.
All right, David, we've got a minute before we get out of here. Whether it's one of the names that we asked you about or somebody that we didn't ask you about that you think is even better, who is your ideal fit for the St. Louis Blues this offseason?
There's a couple options for me, and twofold. One, you're looking at. Well, we mentioned a couple guys in terms of mid six. The other guy that we haven't talked about, who's playing right now, he'll be playing tonight, is Aaron Ekblad, and he is going to be, by all accounts, hitting the market July 1st. as an unrestricted free agent. I'm taking a look at him if I'm a top contender with now some cap space because of Krug. The Krug situation, I think what the Blues are in and around, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, around $5 million in space right now.
Yeah, prior to LTIR.
And then you add Kyrou, pardon me. You add Krug to the mix, and you've got, another, whatever it is, 5 something to deal with. So you're hovering over 10. If you want to go after one big fish and you want to utilize some of that, a good chunk of that space, I'd be curious to see if they go in that direction for an Ekblad, if they want somebody two-way mobile on the back end to really strengthen that back end in front of Binnington. The other guy to look at would be Vladislav Gavrikov as well. They're talking in L.A. about trying to hold on to him. He plays the left side. Ekblad plays the right. But this is, they're going to be in and around the same price tag. That would be an interesting one for me. You can never have too many good quality defensemen, and as we've seen, especially the Blues love to have their guys. I wouldn't be surprised if that, at the very least, is somebody that they pick up the phone about.
Hey, David, always appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today, playing our silly little game. I know you've got a lot going on out there covering the Stanley Cup Finals right now, so all the best to you, and we'll talk with you again as we get prior to this July 1st start of free agency.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you. That was fun.
Thanks, David. Absolutely. As David Pagnotta, appreciate his time as always, joining us here on BK and Ferrario, editor-in-chief of The Fourth Period. You can check out all of his work on Twitter as well, at The Fourth Period. He definitely sounded interested in Tuck.
Yes.
He definitely sounded interested in our guy, Pius Suter.
Yeah.
I would say definitely sounded interested in either of the Vegas guys.
Yeah, and Taves.
And Taves.
I know you're not. I would absolutely do that. The question is my follow-up question. If he's looking for a Stanley Cup, I don't know if that's the Blues. But if you're looking for a team that could get into the playoffs and maybe do damage, that's the Blues more so than some of the other teams I've seen connected to them.
So some of these conversations really require us to have a bigger one about Jordan Kyrou. So let's get into that coming up next.
No.
I had a seemingly come to Jesus moment earlier today as we were talking in the office.
Sad.
Finally.
Can you win a Stanley Cup with Jordan Kyrou in your top 6? I think it's a question that the Blues basically have to answer this offseason. We'll talk about that coming up next here on 101 ESPN. All right, it's on the poll. Can the Blues win a cup with Jordan Kyrou as a top 6 winger?
That's when you know BK has a come-to-Jesus moment. When you see a poll go out in the 10 o'clock hour, it's because T-Bone and I said something that he was like, what are you talking about? And then back-looked it and was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Now I got to find out if this is right or wrong.
So I put this out there on Twitter at BK Sports Talk. You can find it there. And we've had almost 200 votes so far. 85% for what it's worth say, yes, you can win a cup with Jordan Kyrou in your top 6.
That's your Casey followers.
So you're the worst.
That's the people that are like, who's Jordan Kyrou?
Here's my question, though. What is the comparison for that? Look at the last decade of NHL teams. And I'm honest to God asking because I couldn't find one. If you have a comparison for Jordan Kyrou, a player as small and skilled and, I don't know, not physical, lacking physicality.
Not willing to go into the trenches to win puck battles. That's the best way that I would be able to explain to Kyrou.
Who is the comparison for a player like that being in the top 6, potentially the leading goal scorer for a Stanley Cup contending team that won the cup?
Yeah.
If you can find one, I would love to hear it because I am like... My priors are yes, you can do this.
And here's the name that is coming out, which I think everybody was going to go to, and it's just the part that I would disagree with. Everyone is saying Vladimir Tarasenko.
They're not the same kind of player, though.
They are not the same type of player because the definition that I put on Jordan Kyrou was a guy who was willing to go into the trenches and win a puck battle. And
Tarasenko is closer to like Bolduc or Booch.
Oh, I think it's Booch. He's got the tenacity. You saw it in that 2019 Cup final, which this is the factor that I am willing to debate over. Like sometimes guys change the way that they play, their personality-wise, once they get to that level of competitiveness, and that's the Stanley Cup final. But Vladimir Tarasenko, yes, was not good defensively, and yes, was not a physical player. Vladimir Tarasenko was big and used his bodies in corners to come away with pucks. So that I just differ on that because what I've seen from Kyrou is a guy that when the puck goes into a corner, and you've got to come out of it with 2 other players on the opposite side, it's going to be float around and see if it comes out rather than go straight in, like a Dylan Holloway.
So we've had a number of people text in Patrick Kane. And I don't know on that one, but I'll go ahead and take it. Here's the tough part for me, Alex, when we start considering the Blackhawks overall, just like what they were as a team and how they were constructed. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're a great comp for the Blues because of the depth of talent that they had, like of superstar level talent. Mm-hmm. Like they had Kane and Taves. I guess maybe if you think that Kyrou is Kane and Thomas is Taves, I suppose. But then you also had like Seabrook. I don't know.
And see, Kane is, I guess, a good one. But to me, Patrick Kane was so good with the puck on his stick that he didn't have to go win puck battles because
another player that
they would find the way to get the puck back by not having to go into the trenches. And those are the elite of the elite. And the Taves and Thomas, I view centermen different than wingers because centermen have so much more responsibilities on their plate to where those wingers are the ones that dive into the trenches and have to go win those puck battles. Like Jaden Schwartz was this guy. When the puck goes in, that player is going in to come away with it.
Jamie just texted us. He said Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would be this guy. That's a fair one.
That's the centerman to me, though, too.
And he's playing with 2 of the best players in the world.
Yeah, but again, like I look at centermen so different because I feel like those guys have other responsibilities than the wingers because, like, typically the F1 that they talk about, the center's driving the puck, it goes in, forward's going in.
I would say, like, the center even, it's more important for them to be willing to go into the physical areas. But the thing with Nugent-Hopkins is, like, you can live with this. Yeah. There's a sliding scale here. I can live with one guy being that if I also have Draisaitl and McDavid on the ice.
Yeah.
The Blues don't have Draisaitl or McDavid, and I don't think that one is coming through their system anytime in the near future. So this gets us to the question, like, we're bringing up individual names, which is part of the problem. Okay, so Patrick Kane did it. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins did it with 2 of the best players of the last 20 years on their roster, right? You can make an argument, maybe, if you wanted to, that Vladdy was this player. You can make an argument, maybe, if you wanted to, that TJ Oshie was this kind of a player. Again, you've got some of the best players in the world playing alongside him, but whatever, neither here nor there. The point is those guys are outliers. It's very rare that you win a cup with those kinds of players. And the Blues are going into an offseason where they essentially have to answer this question. They have to make a decision on whether or not they believe the next version of the Blues contender can win a cup with that guy in their top 6. Because if you don't trade Kyrou now, and I mean literally in the next 3 weeks, you're probably not trading him because you lose all of your leverage. If you want to send him to a team like the Buffalo Sabres, well, guess what? You can't any longer because starting on July 1st, he has a full no trade clause and he can block any trade he doesn't want to be a part of. So maybe he says, I'm willing to go to 3 teams. Okay, well, now you have 0 leverage because let's say one of those teams doesn't want Kyrou. Another one can't take him on because of the cap considerations. You have 1 team you can negotiate with. Good luck getting any kind of a real return in that way. Good luck. So now's the time where you have to make that choice. And Alex, this is why there is so much pressure this offseason on the Blues to decide, can they?
Yeah.
Can we be the team that wins with Kyrou the way that, if you want to put him in this category, Patrick Kane won with the Blackhawks, the way that Kucherov won with the Lightning, Nugent Hopkins was able to win with the Edmonton Oilers. Do you think they can?
Man, I think they can, but it has to be in the perfect scenario where you've got 5 other guys picking up the slack for that one guy. And it's why I think I'd lean more towards no. And the base of this conversation that we started was watching this Stanley Cup final, watching the Oilers and the Panthers play. Man, they just are a group of 12 forwards and 6 defensemen that will throw their body out there no matter what, go into the trenches. It doesn't matter. They're coming away with the puck. Like, that's the physicality. That's the tenacity that those teams need to have to win a cup. And when you've got a guy who's playing 19, 20 minutes a night that you're relying on, I don't know if that gets you there because that's one of those guys that has to go into the trenches. And just look at where they're at. Let's say they run it back with this team next year and they get to the playoffs and it's Holloway, Kyrou, Snuggerud, Buchnevich in your top 6. Man, there are 3 of those guys that are unknowns, in my opinion, of playing to that level. It's Snuggerud, who, I mean, he's fine, but we haven't seen that yet. I mean, he was a rookie. Wasn't even a rookie. He was a college player playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I don't know if that physicality's there. Kyrou we're having the discussion about, and Pavel Buchnevich is very hot and cold. You definitely
Those are some costs, though.
They are, and that's what I mean. These guys are here, and you hope that they grow from it. Maybe you hope that Kyrou can grow from it. But the Blues team, if you've got 3 guys that aren't playing to the level that you see with the Panthers and the Oilers, no, I don't think you can.
I mean, that's a roster problem, though. Like, that's not a Kyrou problem. That's a we've got to fix this on a roster problem that you're really discussing there. I refuse to believe that you can't. I do. I refuse to believe that you can't build a contender around Jordan Kyrou. I don't want to believe it, honestly. Because if you can't win with guys like this on your roster, it makes the game less fun. I know that that's not all that hockey is about, right? It's about winning, and we've got to go out there.
This is where BK was crushed.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't like the game anymore.
Dude, if you can't win with a guy that goes out there and is fast as hell, is one of the better distributors in the game that plays on the wing, he can be a consistent 35-goal scorer for you. And we've seen it even in the playoffs where, dude, he's actually been a relatively good playoff performer for the most part. He just has games where he disappears for you. If you can't win with that guy, man, that sucks. Like, that to me would be so incredibly disappointing. I think you can. I think it requires a lot out of the rest of your forwards. Like, you better be good as that second line center. You better have another dude in the top 6 that can score 30+ goals for you. You better be great defensively. And maybe this gets to the point that we were just talking about on the in our last segment with David Pagnotta, who brought up the Ekblad idea. Like, maybe the way you make up for Kyrou's defensive lapses is, okay, well, we've got Parayko, Fowler, Broberg, and now we have Aaron Ekblad. Good luck. Good luck. Like, yeah, you can go ahead and get in that transition game, but Parayko's going to shut it all down. Broberg's going to shut it all down. We've got Ekblad, who's pretty physical. Fowler, who adds in with the offensive side of things. Like, maybe that becomes the trump card for the Blues. We have 7 dudes that can score 20+ goals, and defensively, we're going to shut your ass down. Good luck. Oh, and we've got a Stanley Cup contending goalie in net. We've got a great structure in place. I want to believe that can work. I desperately want to, and if it can't, if I'm in Army's shoes, I'd be willing to go down with that ship. I'd be willing to be the one that said, you know what? It's not worth it for me to trade a guy that's making $8 million that scores 30 goals every year and is 27 years old unless I get a crazy return.
The question, though, isn't Doug Armstrong going down with that ship, because there's another captain taking over next year, and that captain's taking over with a guy that becomes a no-trade clause.
But you know who's going to make that decision? It's Doug Armstrong.
Yeah.
Doug Armstrong is the one that makes that choice now.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a problem for Alexander Steen if he views it as a problem. But this offseason is really where you can choose one way or the other what you want to do. And Army's making that choice, Dan.
Yeah, here's the other side to this, because I don't want this to come off like I'm a Kyrou hater this segment, because I promise I'm not. We didn't see Kyrou in the playoffs with Holloway. And sometimes guys step their game up when they play with another player that brings the best out of them. If you don't believe me, look at Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk. Sam Bennett's getting talked about $10+ million. Guy has played with Matthew Tkachuk for almost his entire career. And Bennett is a guy that could be a $10 million player playing with a Matthew Tkachuk. I didn't get to see that in the playoffs. And there is no arguing about it from post Four Nations break till the injury for Dylan Holloway. Kyrou and Holloway were two of the best players on the ice on a nightly basis. And Kyrou changed the way that he played.
Definitely.
So it is a serious question to ask, because like Alex Tuck, for example, you brought up. To me, there's no point in going to acquire another winger if you got all of these wingers. You'd have to move one of these wingers to upgrade the area that is still a hole, and that's the center position. Tuck is a guy that goes into the trenches. Tuck is a guy that does bring that extra push.
A lot of the production that Kyrou has as well.
And he has been a postseason producer when he played with the Vegas Golden Knights. So this is why I look at this and say, like, look, if you're going to go get a winger, you might have to expense that winger for a centerman, but you're getting a guy that plays a different style than Jordan Kyrou.
Yeah, it's one of the more difficult decisions that the Blues have had to make in recent seasons.
You think if you're Kyrou, you're just hoping July 1st gets here and you
Absolutely.
don't get traded, so people will just shut the hell up about
100%.
it?
And if we get to July 1st, people should shut the hell up about
Yes,
it.
100%.
Because, like, once we get there, all of the leverage is gone. The Blues basically, they won't have to take whatever it is that anybody offers to get him, but you can't get the same return.
Well, it's the same with
when you lack
Buchnevich.
leverage.
Pavel Buchnevich has struggled this year, but he's got a no-trade clause, so we're not talking about it.
Look at Krug, look at Falk, look at Leddy, like all of these things. Part of the consideration here is the no-trade protection that players have and what that means for your ability to extract any kind of value on them. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you missed any of our conversation with David Pagnotta or our conversation about Jordan Kyrou, you can check that out after the show today at 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. It is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Alex, Matthew Liberatore has hit his roadblocks. We all knew that was likely to happen. What are we learning about him right now, and what does it mean for the Cardinals' rotation moving forward? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the Blue Jays yesterday 5-2 as they were swept by Toronto. And tonight they head to Milwaukee where they'll start a 4-game set with the Brewers. 6:40 will be first pitch. Sonny Gray will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
What is Matthew Liberatore going to be? That's really one of the questions that we wanted the Cardinals to answer this season, and they're hoping to find out. 13 games started so far this year, has a 3.90 ERA. I think all of us at the beginning of the year would have signed up for that. But the way that he has arrived at those numbers has been a bit of a roller coaster ride. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Really, this started with the Texas start. So it's 3 consecutive starts now that have not gone according to plan for him. In those 3 starts, he's lasted just 14 innings. He's given up 23 hits, 14 runs in his last 14 innings. He's still not walking anybody, which is great, but the strikeout numbers are starting to go down. And Alex, the real concern here is what we've seen with the velocity over the last 3 starts now. He gets into the 4th, 5th inning, and suddenly instead of throwing 94, 95, he's throwing 91, 92. And in not this most recent start, but the start before that, it was like 89 on one of his fastballs that he was throwing. That's not the Matthew Liberatore that we have come to know for much of the season. We all knew this was coming at some point. He was going to run into some kind of a roadblock. It was never going to be, all right, goes from great reliever to number 2 starter, and boom, Cardinals have just figured this out. It's all going to be hunky-dory from here. That was never likely to be the case. So now we've arrived. And this is a potential fork in the road moment for him with his career. What are you going to be? What are you capable of becoming at the major league level? Hitters have adjusted. His fastball's getting hit hard. The breaking stuff is not working to the same degree that it did earlier in the season. Yesterday, so much so that he flipped his usage between the curveball and the slider, which was one of the big things that he did last year in the bullpen. He just became more of a slider guy than he was. He previously was known as a curveball first pitcher in the minor leagues. Alex, given where we are right now, what do you feel like we're currently learning about Matthew Liberatore, and what will we learn over his next few starts?
Boy, that's a great question that I don't know the answer to, because I'm concerned about Matthew Liberatore, but like you said, I've also anticipated this at some point because you knew he was going to hit a wall, and it feels like you've hit that wall now. 8 of those 14 runs have come in the 3rd and 4th inning. So it's like when the velo starts to dip a little bit, you start to see the teams pounce. And if you lose the primary pitch that you use, well, then where do you go with this one? I think the next few starts are going to tell you exactly what we just talked about. Where do you go from here? Like, you've got 2 different lanes if you're Matthew Liberatore. You can power through this, develop a new pitch, work on that fastball that's not working, and dig deeper to find a way to push through that adjustment that the other team made. Or you fall back into the gets hit around, needs some time off to work on some things, and then you go back into it later in the season. And I don't think either are bad for Matthew Liberatore, but I would say it's bad for the Cardinals because the hope was that this Liberatore thing was real. Even if you hit a bump in the road, that he becomes a guy that at worst is a 3 or a 4 for you, and that is a cheap, cost-controlled pitcher that helps your rotation. If you take a step backwards and you have to readapt if you're Matthew Liberatore, that sets the Cardinals back because now you're once again in that unknown category.
We got this text. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, he's hurt. They'll say he needs Tommy John in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, man.
Well, if that's the case, then
That's why we can't have good things.
Typically, when you
Pitcher's
see
break.
a guy that is legitimately hurt, let's call it injured, right? Because if you need Tommy John, that's a real injury. A lot of the time, that shows up early in a game. What we're seeing with Liberatore is stuff that almost signifies some kind of a fatigue over the course of an outing. Because he's coming into these games, and in the first couple of innings, yes, sometimes he's getting hit, but the velocity is fine. The stuff looks the way that it should. And then as the game wears on, you start to see the second and third time through the order, his stuff starts to diminish, the velocity goes down, and boom, he has to leave the game earlier than expected. That's been Matthew Liberatore's problem for his entire major league career up until like the first 10 starts of this season. And then that was what was so surprising to me is, oh, okay, this is different. Libby is lasting longer into these games. The velo is holding up later in the games. That allows him to be a very different pitcher than what he had been previously in his career. You guys remember that start against the Rays a couple of years ago, right? And I was like, oh, hot damn, they might have something here. And then he wasn't able to repeat that. So the fact that he was able to repeat it so often this season really got all of our hopes up. T-Bone, now that he's going through this again, and we're seeing something that is very similar to what we had seen prior in his career, what does that mean to you?
I think right now it shows that he is trying to learn that endurance, to your point, I think is a good word to describe what's going through with Matthew Liberatore. I think it shows right now as he's kind of in the same stage in his development career as a starter as Andre Pallante, as like a 4 or a 5. I think that's where he's at. And I think when you saw that like 10-game consistent stretch there at the beginning of the season, I think that was, oh, okay, if everything clicks for Matthew Liberatore, he's like a 3 and maybe like on a really good day, like a number 2, like a perfect number 3 with a decent amount of swing and miss stuff that you can go in and say, okay, we might get 6 solid outings from him. But I think what you're seeing now is he is still in kind of that development stage, right? To where he's kind of going through this weird endurance issue, whatever it might be, mechanics, whatever you want to call it. And he's trying to figure out, okay, well, why is this gone south? Is it just the fact that he is almost up to where he threw in innings like he did last year coming out of the bullpen? Maybe that's what the issue is, and he is starting to actually get a little bit fatigued, and they're going to have to try and find a way to manage at least up until the All-Star break to then figure out how they want to approach this with Matthew Liberatore. I don't think this says much about what his long-term future is, because I think this is a true development year for him as a starter, right? Like, I think there's a chance that going into next year, he might be able to sustain that 10-game stretch that we saw for like 20 to 25. And he's just kind of learning on the fly right now. But I think for this year, it kind of changes the impact of what I look at him as like, okay, yeah, it was great, those 10 starts that we saw. And you see the flashes that the Cardinals were talking about when they decided, hey, this is why we think he can start. But it was also a reminder of he's still 25 years old. He's still learning here at the big league level. He is more of a 4 or 5 at this point in his career.
It is probably worth noting what he's been over the last 3 starts is what a number 5 starter would look like.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, if that's the floor, you still have a starter here.
Yeah.
This is a starter.
It's cost controlled.
Yes. You developed something that you have severely been lacking. Andre Pallante, well, incredibly frustrating. That's a starter. And it's the type of thing that they had lacked. Like that's Lance Lynn, dude. When you look at Andre Pallante, think about that's a $12 million starter. Because that's what it looks like. It's not sexy. It's not super exciting. But that's what gets $12 million on the open market. Matthew Liberatore, it's probably closer to like 15. Because when you look at left-handed pitchers that have this kind of velo and can get you at least 5 innings with a regular basis and give you a chance to win, that's $15 million. That's Andrew Haney, man. That's what he's been for like 7 different teams over the last decade. And he consistently continues to get these opportunities. Now he's finally at the point of his career where he's having to go like the Pirates. Is he on the Pirates this year? So that's what this is. And that's a good starting point. And now it becomes a question for him on, okay, what do you want to be? What does your stuff allow you to be long-term? And I'm really interested to watching this development plan because the Cardinals have earned the benefit of the doubt in this regard where they're going to maximize whatever's in there. They're maximizing right now Miles Michaelis. Now, that doesn't mean you have to love it, but they're maximizing what he has available to him. They, last year, maximized what Andre Pallante was capable of as a starting pitcher after sending him down and figuring out the sinker. Now they're having to find something new. They're having to adjust to the adjustments that the league made. They're about to go through that exact same process with Matthew Liberatore. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know what he's going to be long-term. They've developed a back-end starter. We know that with Matthew Liberatore. And now we get to see what the adjustments are and how they can find a way to keep that velo up. It sounds like such a small thing to be honing in on, but dude, when Matthew Liberatore throws 95+, he is a different pitcher. We saw that in the bullpen than when he's out there throwing 90 and 91, which is where he's been sitting in the 4th, 5th, and into the 6th innings over his last 3 starts. He's got to find a way to break through that. I don't think he should be like taking starts off. I don't know that that's going to be the thing that fixes this because he's going out in these outings and looks like himself in the first 3 innings. If this was something where like he's dead-armed going into the start, then yeah, let's talk about potentially getting him some rest. That's not what's happening. It's taking until the 5th or 6th inning to see that drop in velo. So I think this is just something he's going to have to work through, and we'll see. We'll see what they're able to extract out of him over the next couple of weeks and ultimately months. Coming up next, time for the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Let's dive into the junk drawer. Alex, what do you got for us today?
Guys, do you remember your first slip and slide experience?
Ooh, my first slip and slide. I can't tell you that it is a core memory for me, unfortunately. I remember in our neighbor's yard, we lived right in front of a pond, and our neighbors had their yard in their backyard. You could kind of overlook it. They had a little bit of a hill, and I like bloodied my leg from sliding right down it a couple of times. But that is my one memory. I was probably in like 5th grade at that point, so
I still have the scar from mine.
that I had previous.
You had a scar right down my forearm from it, where I went down a hill. And there was a big rock underneath it and just sliced right through it. Well, the reason I ask is because my 4-year-old daughter is going to remember hers for a long time.
Okay.
So as I think I've talked about it on the show, the text line helped me out find somebody to fix our pool. So we're in the process of getting our pool fixed. But my daughters, because
Shouts to the text line.
Yeah, shout out to that Air Comfort Service text line coming through. But because of that, my daughters, they love the water, love the pools. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to get something. So I was at Aldi's and I found it was like a little kiddie pool with a slip and slide combo. And I'm like, this will be great. I love slip and slides. And so I laid it out.
Text line. Zip it up.
Oh,
chill.
What are we zipping up?
Some of these texts. I don't need to see any of this. I don't need to read these.
Come on, guys.
Clean it up.
Clean it up. You guys are filthy. Anyway.
Just after we shouted them out. Ridiculous.
I know. I take my shout out back. So I laid it out for the girls. And so my middle, Emma, she was playing in the pool. My youngest hates cold water. But Adelaide was like, Daddy, I want to try the slip and slide. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I laid it out for her. And I was like, this is how you do it, baby. So I ran and I did it. And it's disaster. Sure. So she's like, okay, this will be fun, Daddy. And so I got the hose out and I had her run. She didn't run. She kind of slowly walked because she was skittish with it.
Sure.
The first time she just walked through it, and that was like, oh, this is fun, Daddy. Second time, she beelined it to the slip and slide. Guys, she was airborne for probably 3 seconds. The Charlie Brown thing where Lucy pulls the ball up and Charlie goes backwards, that was her. She ran, foot went out from under her, in the air backwards, landed on her back. Bawling her eyes out. And you
just ruined it. She's never going on a slip and slide again.
She didn't.
That's on you.
She actually forced me to get the slip and slide away from the kiddie pool. And I'm like, all right, baby, that's fine. But she was like, Daddy, she's like, I didn't like that. I said, that's fine, baby. I said, look, it happens. I said, you've got to slide on your belly. I said, when you run, you got to go forward so that you go down the slide. And she was fear of God in her. So there will no more be slip and slides in my household.
Well, it's a good thing you got the pool fixed.
Not yet.
Well, it's a good thing you're getting
got
the
a
pool
couple
fixed.
more weeks, but we got the kiddie pool. But you saw the fear in her eyes when she was airborne, and as a dad, there's nothing you can do.
No.
I'm like, you
waiting.
can't get to her time. I'm like, you're just gonna have to fall, and it's like I got to talk to you afterwards. So, good old slip and slides,
yes,
man.
text line. We're talking about the slip and slide in your backyard. That's the one. Coming up next,
573,
it sure
you are
sounds
filthy.
like the Cardinals are open-minded to trading Helsley and maybe Fedde at this year's deadline. We'll tell you the latest next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it sure sounds like the Cardinals are open to the idea of trading Ryan Helsley and or Eric Fedde at this year's trade deadline. Alex over in The Athletic, Jim Bowden put together his list of 20 things he's hearing prior to this year's Major League Baseball trade deadline, which is, checks notes, about 3 to 6 weeks away.
I was going to say, not 3 weeks.
Yep,
3
6 weeks away.
He said 50 days in the piece.
He thought this was July.
Here you go. The Cardinals, according to Jim Bowden, will be open-minded about adding at the deadline, but if things go south in the coming weeks, do not expect them to turn into your traditional sellers. They are committing to building for the long term, so expect every move that they make between now and the deadline to reflect that approach. Being open to adding, though, does not mean that if they were to get the right offer for closer Ryan Helsley or for starting pitcher Eric Fedde or Miles Mikolas, that they wouldn't jump on it. They will. All three will be free agents after this season. That is the end of his piece on the Cardinals. We have reached out to Jim Bowden. We're hoping to have him on at some point in the near future. Just got to make it work timing-wise. But, Alex, when you read this piece, how did you interpret that?
That unless the Cardinals are sitting in a playoff spot on July 1st, July 31st, I'm messing up free agency and trade deadline now. The Cardinals are going to be exploring trades for Ryan Helsley. Like, I don't think this is they're one game away from the wild card spot on trade deadline day, and we'll have to have an internal conversation about Ryan Helsley staying or going. At least from Jim Bowden's perspective and from who he's talking to, that sounds like they're going to be viewing this as, look, if we can get necessary assets for this team set up for future years at this year's trade deadline, unless this is currently a playoff team, they're going to trade Ryan Helsley. And probably Eric Fedde, to me, seems like the likely one because the replacement's already in-house and Michael McGreevy.
I would be surprised if Eric Fedde is on this team on August 1st.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like the likely one no matter what because there's your Michael McGreevy starts down the stretch.
Yep.
But Ryan Helsley, I don't think this is a matter of are they within a shot of the playoffs. I think this is are you a playoff team by the time the trade deadline rolls around?
I think there's some of that. I also think like some of this is just doing your job. Quote, being open to adding doesn't mean that if they get the right offer for closer Ryan Helsley, they won't jump on it. They will. Sure. But this begs the question of what's the right offer? Because that is very open for interpretation. If I'm John Mozeliak and to me the right offer for Ryan Helsley is your top 3 prospects in your system, well, yeah, if you offer them to me, I have to accept that. But that offer is set at an extremely high rate. We know that the Cardinals had a really high price for Helsley in the offseason, so much so that they didn't accept any offer for Ryan Helsley. I'm sure they got plenty. They said, not enough.
Yeah.
Nobody met our asking price. And it might just be that they get to the trade deadline and nobody meets their price for Helsley, regardless of where they're at, if they are, still in it the way that they are today, but not in a playoff spot. That's my interpretation of this is, yeah, of course, you're open to trading Helsley, quote, for the right offer, end quote, as you should be. Everybody has a price. They should be open to trading Sonny Gray for the right price. Whoa. I think that price is, a crazy rate to the point that I don't think they're ever going to get that. But sure, yeah, you listen. You listen to offers on just about anybody on your team.
You're not doing your job.
Not to.
Yeah, you're not doing your job if you're not answering the phone when somebody calls and says, we want Ryan Helsley.
So I don't know that there's a lot here. I think to me, when I read something like this, it screams like, yeah, Mo's going to do his job at the deadline. That's what this says. And now it's up for us to interpret and for everybody else to interpret. What does that mean? What does that offer look like? And I think depending on what you have, and I'm saying you as the generic use, like you, Alex, you, T-Bone, you, BK, you, whoever is listening right now, whatever you think that price is, if you think it's like relatively low, then you probably think that they're going to trade Ryan Helsley at the deadline almost no matter what. But I don't view it that way. I think they're going to have a very high price set for Ryan Helsley. And so I'm not as certain that he'll be gone. I think it really does depend on where they're at in the standings. The worst case scenario is if they are at the deadline where they are today, 2.5 back of the wild card and like 5+ out of the division. That is a brutal spot if you're John Mozeliak, because now you have to make a very tough choice without knowing exactly where your team's going to be.
And that's where I just kind of feel like they're going to make that choice to sell, kind of to the Jim Bowden point of like, don't forget what the line was, but like navigate away from what the plan was. I do wonder if somebody's going to meet that massive asking price, because if that's the only big-time closer on the board. I mean, that's what everybody wants at the deadline. It's what teams believe can set them from being a good playoff team to a great playoff team. And at some point, somebody might just say, we need this to get us over the hump. And that's why I really just don't know. The price is set high, but I really wonder if teams like the Phillies or if teams like not the Mets, but teams like the Giants or somebody in the American League comes calling because that guy's name is still out there.
If a team like Detroit, LA, something like that, maybe
From the Yankees. I know they got Luke Weaver, but
now, here's an interesting question for you. The Cubs have an excellent farm system. Would you trade Helsley to the Cubs if they had the best offer?
Yeah.
If you're out of it and you have made the determination, we're not going to push for the playoffs this year. We're trading Fedde, we're trading Matz, we're trading Helsley, we're trading all of our expiring contracts. Would you be willing to trade Ryan Helsley to the Chicago Cubs if they had what is very clearly the best offer on the table?
yeah, because I don't think a closer has the same meaning of a prospect
expiring deal.
to a division rival.
Yeah, I would do it, and part of this could be like I'm going to fall for fool's gold, but I wouldn't think the Cubs would re-sign him either.
Yeah.
Right? They have to worry more about Tucker than Ryan Helsley in the way they operate, to your point, too. I would be okay with that. Maybe I get a really good return for that, and though maybe but at that point, if you're selling, you're selling, right? You're not even worried about chasing down the Cubs. So, yeah, I would be open-minded to that kind of a move.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I think the Mets are going to be in on closers. I think the Phillies are going to be in on closers. Dodgers are always in on relievers. Padres are typically always in on relievers. Yankees are always in on relievers. Tigers will probably want to continue to bolster that bullpen. There's a lot of teams that are going to be in the mix for relievers. If you decide we're selling, you'll be able to get a really good haul for Ryan Helsley. If you are at the deadline where you are today,
I think there's
how would you guys lean?
I think I would sell. If somebody's willing to meet my asking price, I would sell. If somebody's not willing to meet the asking price, I would keep them.
I think I would still lean towards buy, but I could see where they end up in a spot where they sell. Because I think if you do have a tiebreaker to this, and like if you're sitting in your room, which Mo will do with his inner circle, and it's like a tie and it's 5-5. First off, we should only have 9 people in the circle. But if it's a tie, I think the tie goes to the
T-Bone sees an assistant general manager come in. He's like, no,
we got 9.
10,
Sorry,
get out.
you're late. You are late. Get out. But I think if it's a tie, you have to go towards the future.
Come on. I've given 15 years of my life to this bleeping organization.
I think if it's a tie, though, I think you have to lean towards selling him. And I still think to that quote from Bowden, and I agree, it probably is mostly Mo's doing his job like all good general managers should do or Pobo should do. I think they get that offer, and I think where it gets interesting is what do you do if you're in the playoffs? And it's not just like you're the top wild card, because that's probably not going to happen. You're like the third wild card, and you're only up on like half a game on the next closest, a game on the second closest, and 2 games on the third closest. I still think they would lean towards trade Helsley then. And that's where it comes down to, how does Mo value a closer when it comes to, can we still get to the playoffs without that guy?
And we know everybody has a different perspective on that. The Fast Lane has a different perspective than I do personally on Helsley. If you sell Helsley, I don't think you're making the playoffs. If you're that close, I mean, if you're up by like 5 games, maybe you've got enough wiggle room. At that point, I can't believe that you're actually selling Ryan Helsley, but whatever, different conversation. If you're right there on the razor's edge of whether or not you're going to make the playoffs and you sell Helsley, I just can't. I don't see how this works out. I would also say, if you're selling Helsley, to me, just sell it all, man. I'm talking about expiring deals.
Yeah.
If you're planning to move on from Helsley, move on from Phil Maton, who should have a pretty good market. Like, you could sell Helsley and Maton in the same deal. Boy.
Yeah, that's the Doug Armstrong method. Just start packaging.
You could put like Helsley, Maton, and Matz into a deal. Imagine what you would get in return.
We are your one-stop shop for trade deadline
For
destination
real,
picks.
And I mean, if you want to throw Fedde in there as well, a team that needs a back-end starter plus some relievers.
Well, as you just said, if you want to throw Sonny Gray in there.
Well, I wouldn't want to do that. That would be my last resort. He's got another year on his contract. But I'm talking about like expiring deals right now.
Yeah.
All of these guys have value.
Yeah.
Miles Michaelis is not a sexy name, and he will not be somebody that people get excited about the deadline. Dude, you know who also wasn't exciting last year? Zach Eflin. He ended up getting traded. Yeah. And he got a little bit of a return for them. So I think
Baltimore?
It was Baltimore, and they decided he's going to be our guy that we build around in 2025 as well.
Not Corbin Burns.
Like a team will
Maybe people should
probably
learn from that.
a team like the Dodgers even could have value in Miles Michaelis because if nothing else, dude, he can go out there and start games for them down the stretch while they try to get some of these arms back healthy prior to the start of the postseason. So you're going to have some real trade chips if you decide to go that route. But it all starts with Helsley, and your decision on him, in my opinion, should guide everything else that you decide to do at the deadline.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if that bullpen just gets dismantled, even like with the Helsley decision, because I think if teams are calling about Helsley and maybe they don't really meet that match, that's where you start adding, like, we'll give you Helsley and Maton for you.
Or if you're not willing to match our price for Helsley, well, let's talk about Maton.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we've got this lefty reliever as well in Steven Matz, who could either start a game for you as a bullpen arm.
And I know people are going to hate it,
spot.
but I mean, I'd have to give, like, you have to give Mo credit if you get the pieces back in return. And of course, hindsight is 2020. You got to wait to find out what those prospects become. But man, like, again, they told you what the stated goal was this season, and they're backing to it. They're making sure that they're building up this team so that you have a longer winning window rather than just a couple of years.
He's Alex Ferrario. That is Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. It is a Thursday. That means it is time for Believe It or Not here on BK and Ferrario.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
Free,
Flying away on a wing and a prayer.
who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
I feel like my wing flapping has been better since I've started doing Pilates. 314-399-9646 is the
That's
air
just
service
a
text line to
say-
get involved in the show.
Ferrario was so on tune there for a minute. I didn't think he was actually singing. I thought I just heard the computer.
I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I'm actually a pretty decent singer.
I can't wait for karaoke night with the
pretty decent
boys.
singer.
You know,
You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are
Tim's
believing
on
it or
Careless
not
Whisper.
here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, let's start out
Tim's
with this
on
one.
Only
I'm
the
doing
Good
this
Die Young.
basically for you. Believe it or not, the best option for the Blues this offseason to upgrade at third line center is to sign Jonathan Toews to a 1-year incentive-laden deal.
I would say believe it. Like, if you're going best option for the team, you're not paying much because performance bonuses is where you're really paying him a lot, and that's a good thing for you if that guy hits his
Similar to
goal
Suter last
threshold.
year.
Yeah, it's a 1-year deal, and that guy is going to be driven to the point that could take you to the next level. And frankly, that would be a perfect guy to have alongside some of my younger players like Dalibor Dvorsky if he's up playing wing at certain times, because that is a Hall of Famer to be around. So the price of what it would take to acquire some pieces in the trade market might be too steep for some people. So yeah, I'd say believe it with Jonathan Toews.
boy, I'm having a tough time with this one because there really is no such thing as a bad 1-year contract.
3-time Stanley Cup.
But
The worst case scenario is he gets hurt, and guess what? You're right back to square
Conn
one.
Smythe winner, Selke Trophy winner,
Dude,
the
he's great
100th
defensively.
anniversary team.
That one doesn't matter
that
as
was
much.
such a. I'm
just reading his
vomit.
That one
during
matters at the end of his career. Also, Team
I think
Canada.
I'm gonna lean towards not believe it. I still think you can get a better, safer bet, whether it be trade or free agency. The problem with the Toews one, and this is why I struggle, because there is really no such thing as a bad 1-year contract, and especially if it's laden with performance bonuses. I just worried that he's been out of the league for 2 years. He's not going to be a guy that is a third-line center. And then if you do move on from him, then you're just stuck right back where you were with Sundqvist running your third line. And then if you bring in Toews, I'm assuming you didn't bring back Foxa. So now I'm like looking for a fourth-line center as well. So I'm going to say not believe this. I think there is a better option out there.
Landeskog was away for 2 years and scored 4 points in
He
5
ain't
playoff
Landeskog.
games.
I hate that you
Not
brought him
anymore.
up as the comparison because he played well when he got back.
I mean, Klingberg was away for 1.5 years because that's the thing with Toews. This wasn't like a hip or a back injury. This was, I mean, it was COVID-related issues that he was having issues breathing, but this wasn't something that...
It's also, my understanding at least, is kind of like a mental health thing.
Yeah,
where he's
COVID,
trying to,
it
like,
really
get
took a
himself
toll
right.
on him, yeah. And remember, when he was playing his last couple of years, you were in a pretty bad situation with the Chicago Blackhawks that you were still the captain of. So, yeah, I'd take a chance on that one.
I'm not believing this. I don't think it's the best option. I think it can be an option, but I have a hard time believing it's the best option. And the thing that's tough with Toews, if he's willing to wait, if he would wait till like July 3rd, and I can get through my options both on the trade market and eventually in free agency, I can then turn my attention to Jonathan Toews. Every report out there is that he would like to be signed like today, basically. He
Why is
wants
that
to
a
get this
problem,
done quick because then you have to make your choice on him before I ever get to free agency.
Well, yeah,
And
but then I know what he's costing me, and then I know where I need
I
to
know,
go.
but you have to sign him before you get to free agency. So I don't get to explore my other options. I don't get to go out and find out, can I go find another option? What does it look like? I mean, I'm going to say the name. What does it look like for Sam Bennett? Does he officially re-sign with the Panthers? Because right now, all of the reports suggest he will. He hasn't yet. Does he sign before July 1st? What about John Tavares? Does he sign before July 1st? It sounds like yes. We don't know yet. So I just don't think that I'm going to get myself there as quickly as he needs me to. So it's a timing thing as much as anything. I would say not. I don't think Toews is the answer for the Blues. Alex, what do you got for
Guys,
us?
let's stick with hockey here. BK's boy, Chris Kreider, was just officially traded to the Anaheim Ducks. So he will not ever be a member of the St. Louis Blues. Believe it or not, the Anaheim Ducks push one of the 3 Pacific Division teams out of a playoff spot next year.
Not this year. I think they're a year away. I think they're a year away from being able to really do something like that. They were so bad last year, man. And they have been for so long. They've got a long way to catch up with those 3 teams in the West. I think that eventually maybe they take over for LA, but no, I'm not believing that going into this upcoming season. Seems too quick.
I'm with BK. I'm not going to believe it. I like some of the pieces they've got. I think that move makes sense for them. I think they need probably one more year before they get there.
I think they could be next year what the Utah Hockey Club was this year, where they're feisty, they're frustrating, maybe even what Calgary was this year.
What I was going to say.
They get in there, they're in the conversation, but they can't quite get it done.
I'm going to believe this one because I believe that either Vegas or LA is going to take a step backwards. And I think Anaheim with Kreider, the reports are that they're going to be spending money this offseason, whether it's for Marner or Ekblad. And I know people don't like him, but I think Quenneville's going to get a boost out of that team that's got some young players that have talent. So I'm going to believe this one. I think only 3 teams getting from the Pacific because I think 5 in the Central. I think one of LA or Vegas falls out of it.
T-Bone?
Guys, follow along with me here. Believe it or not, the St. Louis Cardinals will add as many pieces to the Major League roster as they trade away from the Major League roster at this year's deadline.
So they will trade 3 pieces.
Yep. And trade out.
Trade away 3 pieces. So it's the
big league
same
roster.
number that go in and
it's
out.
the buy-sell scenario.
I'm out.
If you're selling that many pieces, I think you're selling.
Yeah. That's kind of where I would say if you're selling a bunch of pieces, the likelihood is you're bringing guys up to backfill from your minor league organizations. And that's the way you're able to get through the rest of the season, the way that they did a couple of years ago. If you're buying, I don't think you're selling a bunch. So the only way that I could really see them buy and sell is if it's like Helsley that goes and then they buy other stuff, but that would probably be more buying than selling. So I'll say not. In any of the scenarios that could be presented, I do not think they go specifically that route.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I would say not. I think it might be close. I think it could be like 3 out, 2 in, to maybe acquire a bullpen arm, go out and maybe acquire a starter, depending on what they want to do with McGreevy. While you also put Gorman in a buying package, you trade Eric Fedde, and then you sell high on Ryan Helsley.
All right.
Felsley, I like that. Like he fell away from the team.
After 3 straight blown saves, might as well be his name, right?
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line from the 314. Guys, believe it or not, you were more interested that Pagnotta continued to bring up Shin to the wing and Holloway to center than you were by any of his possible additions.
No, would not believe it. Nothing against Pagnotta. I love the guy. I buy absolutely zero into what he's talking about of Holloway playing the center position.
Agreed.
Jim Montgomery saw what Dylan Holloway was on the wing, and you saw what it was without him on the wing. He's not a center.
And he watched from afar what it was like to put a winger at center.
Yeah, well, remember when he came in, when somebody asked, like, is Pavel Buchnevich a center for you? No, Pavel Buchnevich is a winger for us. And Holloway never touched the center position, nor did Buchnevich from the moment Jim Montgomery was hired.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Guys, believe it or not, Lars Nootbaar will be out of the leadoff spot for tonight's game. I think I'm believing this. I think they're going to make the change. Especially after hearing Ollie talk yesterday. He just struck out. He got the off day. Then you strike out in, 4 of your 5 at-bats? Yeah, I think they make the change.
Yeah, I'm going to believe this one as well. I think when you have that many strikeouts after a day off, you kind of know the guy's going through it.
Song's kind of getting to me today.
I'm going to say not believe it.
Is this a bumper, as the kids say?
I think they might wait till Donovan comes back to make the move. So I'll say not believe it for now.
I meant banger, not bumper. Bumper's what people said in the 70s.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever said that.
No,
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Guys, believe it or not, T-Bone has the Saliga heating and cooling read, but best of the producers.
Oh, believe it.
Believe it. Yeah.
I think Marshy's is pretty good, man.
To hell with
Marshy gets into it.
Marshy really gets after it.
I like Tanner's. I think Tanner's is the best. Nobody does it like the actual commercials, though.
No, that's true.
Heating and cooling. That's what it should be. You could take that one and use it on loop, T-Bone.
I think we got an update this commercial break, so maybe I'll do it on that one.
Believe it or not, the Cardinals should trade for Rafael Devers.
No, not.
Hell yes.
No.
Hell yes. Heimblum here, make the move.
That guy is a head case.
Ooh. Want some breaking news?
Yes, please. Oh, was it my kind of breaking news?
Cardinals transactions.
Oh. Breaking news!
You want it now, or do you want it on the... Look, BK's upset he hasn't gotten a text yet.
Yeah, what the heck? Why didn't
Do you want it now, or you want it on the other side?
Is it good news?
It's good news.
All right, coming up on the other side, Alex will break some good Cardinals for you.
What?
I hope you're not breaking anybody.
I will break you.
Take two. Coming up on the other side, Alex will break some Cardinals news here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Rhino Shield. If you're a business owner and the look of your business from the outside needs a uptick, needs a facelift, Rhino Shield can help you. There are so many businesses in the area that have used Rhino Shield's work to change the exterior of their business with a ceramic coating process. RFME and MC Mechanical Services are one of these. There's a plaza right next to me in High Ridge Shopping Center that used Rhino Shield's work, and now brand new black coating of ceramic on the outside that looks brand new. And that's what you get. It's 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays, and it's all backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. You get the coating of a Rhino on your business or your home if it needs a new look. Call Darren today. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you. 877-25-RHINO and schedule your appointment today. 877-25RHINO.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals will be back in action tonight. 6:40 start as they start a 4-game set at the Milwaukee Brewers. Sonny Gray will be on the mound for St. Louis. We'll get into the Cardinals' latest transactions here on BK and Ferrario coming up in just a second. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
I want to say this up front. This is progress. We're getting there. The Cardinals are making moves that were necessary. Alex,
The baseball insider.
you said that there are updates, breaking news from the
Breaking
St.
news.
Louis Cardinals. What do you got for us?
Let's start from the bottom and work our way to the top, boys. Less excitement versus most excitement. Rehab assignment. Jordan Walker is headed to Memphis for his rehab
Good,
assignment.
they need him.
They have,
Seriously, they desperately need a right-handed outfield bat.
they have recalled. What'd you say? They desperately needed a right-handed outfield bat? They have recalled Michael Ciani.
Okay, cool. There's a role for him here right now.
He's a left-handed bat.
Because once you go to the bench, you probably do so for one of your outfielders, either Burleson or Victor Scott. I'm sure they're going to call up a right-handed bat for those opportunities, and then you replace that guy with the defense, Michael Ciani. Put him in center field. Cool.
They
I'm good
have
with that.
optioned Chris Roycroft.
Okay.
That makes
Butchered
sense.
that
It
one.
was time. He's thrown 51 pitches over the last couple of days. He served his role, got you out of those games. You didn't have to go to your leverage guys. Cool. Fine.
They have DFA'd Ryan Valade.
Oh, man. I feel for Valade, but thank God.
You weren't touching.
Thank God.
Wow. Wow.
Poor
Man,
guy.
I feel bad for Ryan Valade.
I do too. It's not his fault. Like, he was performing well at the AAA level. He was put into a spot that he never should have been put in. All he had to play him. That's the right-handed bat they gave you. They tried it. It failed.
When you DFA the man, you open up a 40-man roster spot, and welcome to the big leagues, Andre Granillo.
Granillo is how you pronounce
Granillo.
it. Now that he's in the big leagues, we got to get it right. Granillo.
Didn't matter, he's in AAA.
low.
Granillo. That's how we pronounce his last name. Congratulations to Andre Granillo. He earned his spot, dude.
Just one up my breaking news.
He earned a spot.
Got to roll it, too. Granillo.
I
Can't do that. Sorry.
Right.
He's striking out 14 batters per 9 innings.
46 so far in 29 innings pitched.
He has a 1.8 ERA at the minor league level. He's been fantastic for Memphis so far this year. Last year down at the Memphis level did not have the same amount of success. He had a 4.8 ERA. Dude, capitalize while you can.
Yep.
This guy is pitching well right now. Let's see what it looks like. You've said this all along, T-Bone. Relievers are a fickle bunch. This might last a month. It might last a year. It might last 3 years. You just don't know, so capitalize while you've got it. He's got the velo. He's got the stuff right now. Go see what this looks like. Let's find out.
Yeah, I'm glad they at least got this because this is the stopper for the bullpen. This would have helped you avoid that, or it could have gotten you that sweep against the Dodgers, and it would have gotten one of those comeback wins for you against the Blue Jays. You've got a stopper to keep the game if you're down by 2 or 3 runs.
So what's the other move?
That's it. Those are your roster moves. You got your outfielder.
I have a question.
Nope.
I
You've
have,
got your
no, no, no,
outfielder.
I have-
You've got a 40-man roster spot open, and you've got your strikeout guy.
You seem to have missed the part in the text, the press release, whatever you want to call it, of the whole like right-handed bat that's coming
You
up.
shut your damn mouth. We've got plenty of those on this roster.
So we're not bringing one.
No, you technically won because you got rid of a right-handed bat that wasn't hitting.
Okay, so Donovan's unavailable, most likely.
We don't know that.
So your bench right now
Oh, this is going to be good.
is Pozo.
Yeah.
Ciani.
It's a right-handed bat, by the way.
They don't.
It's a right-handed bat. He hits.
In the most technical of senses, it is indeed.
He
Yes,
is an
you're
upgrade
correct.
over Ryan Valade.
And by the way, if they use him in that role, I'm cool with it because he's been a good bat for you. He'll swing at everything, but he does have like. He is the power bat from the right side that we're talking about. If they utilize him in the role that we are discussing here, it's just hard to do that because it leaves you where Herrera is your backup catcher.
Leaves you one
And
more.
They don't want you. They don't want to use Herrera behind the plate if possible. Sorry, Palante, you're the one that you're stuck. Like he's your personal catcher, but otherwise, like he's not a guy they want behind the plate, especially when it's a close game late. So they have not been using Pozo in that area. You've got Barrero. He's still here.
He's had a couple of good hits.
Didn't he go over in his last start?
Shut up. So did Noot, man.
He's 3 for 20.
He's not a
with
starter.
7 strikeouts.
What is he off of the bench? What is he as a
Nothing.
pinch hitter?
He doesn't pinch hit. He's not a guy that
Well,
you utilize in this way.
My argument is starting to fall flat on its face.
Much like Valade, I'm not mad at Barrero. This is not his fault. I wasn't mad at Taylor Motter. It's not his fault.
You hated Taylor Motter.
I know. I hated the way that he was used. And it's not Ollie's fault either. This is what I have available to me. There were times where it was Ollie's fault. But it's if this is what I have available, then I've got to utilize it, right? Oh, so far this year, when used as a substitution, he is 0 for 5 is Jose Barrero.
Yeah, but is he giving them good at-bats?
I just, like, this is not a bench bat.
Well, this is also...
I'm not even calling it, forget the Sajaci thing. I think it's crazy. He should be playing in the outfield, in my opinion, right now down in AAA to give him the opportunity to come up as a utility guy, a true super utility guy, especially right now while Donovan's out. Like, what? But if you're not willing to do that, at least have Luke and Baker. Because now you have the guy in Ciani who can replace Baker after you pinch hit him for one of Burleson or Scott. Because those are the two guys you get late into these innings. I promise you, the Brewers are going to counter at the bottom of your order with a left-handed pitcher. They will. They have 4 of them. They're going to utilize them a lot at the bottom of your order. Burleson, Scott, Noot. That's what you want if you're the Brewers, and they're sandwiched by like Pajes. Yeah, I'll use my lefty there. That's the spot. You have to be able to counter that. And right now, the counter is only if you use Pozo. And if you're not using Pozo, you have no counter on your bench. You can't counter.
Have you seen Baker's numbers, though, in Memphis?
He's great against lefties.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many he's going up against, but in his last 15 games, he's only got 5 hits.
He doesn't have a ton of plate appearances even at the minors against lefties, but it still is he's got like a 800 OPS against lefties still.
Yeah.
Like
he has not been good at
5
the
for
minor league
27.
level, but he has a very specific usage. He is a right-handed bat that thumps against lefties. And if you want him to come up in that role, he can have success. So far this year against left-handed pitchers at the minor league level, he has a 900 OPS. Now, against right-handed pitchers, it's 550. He's been bad against them. So never let him face a righty. Just bring him in specifically for this role. The role that they once had for Albert, that should be the role for Luke and Baker. They can find a role for that, but... they choose not to because they have to have their blankie and Jose Barrero. And again, I'm not telling you this is Ollie's fault. It's not. This is an organizational decision that they have decided we need Jose Barrero at the major league level. And I don't understand it. I think it's just he has to go through waivers, and so they're terrified that they'd lose him. Okay.
Yeah.
And
well, the real.
if you really need a 40-man spot, which apparently they were so scared of, well, there you go.
The real spot that they dropped the ball is not getting reps for Sajaci in the outfield, using him like a super utility guy. The problem here is they're so afraid to bring them up. To just be a bench player that can come in certain situations, they have to have him as an everyday player.
He's never going to have that here.
Yeah,
Sorry, I keep interrupting.
You've got to.
do I need to turn it off?
Please, turn off my mic.
You've got to. He keeps stealing my points too, man. I'm trying to make myself look good right now, but like You've got to use guys in these roles to win baseball games. You can't just have 9 everyday players and that's how we're going to win. You've got to have bench bats that can be replacements for you, that can step in when Lars Nootbaar goes 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts, or when Donovan injures his toe, but yet they look at this and say, no, we don't have bench bats. They're only everyday starters. That's really the problem here by the Cardinals.
That's where I'm at.
To your point on when you view it as, hey, we got to have 9 everyday players, you know what you run into? You run into an issue where you end up putting guys that just aren't big leaguers on the bench, right? Like that's Barrero at this point. Like, just if we're being honest, that's Barrero at this point. That's what Ryan Valade was at this point.
Jose Firmino.
They were they're like 4A players, right? Guys that when you're in a pinch, sure, they do have some value to be up on the bench to try and help out. But right now they weren't helping you, right? And that's when you get pigeonholed to what has been my complaint for a couple of years now, which is at times, and I still feel this way with the current roster moves, they're playing with like a 25-man roster when you get 26, right? Like, because Barrero doesn't have a role. Correct. Everybody else has a role, right? Like, I like the fact that they made the Granillo move. I love the fact that they did that. It may not work. Like, he could be down in like 2 weeks. But you know what? You're trying it, right? They've got really 2 right-handed spots in the bullpen that they are kind of churning through, trying to figure out who's going to take them. Riley O'Brien's looked pretty good since he came back. So maybe he takes one of those spots. Maybe Granillo is the one that takes the other one.
Granillo.
Sorry, I'm going to get it.
There's no L's.
No.
Pretend that there's no L's in there.
Hopefully he can take the other
head,
one.
Shoulders, knee, and toes. It says.
That's not helpful.
Stop interrupting!
Seriously, it's off now.
All right, he's done. He's done. Talk to me,
But
T-Bone.
hopefully you can at least, like, you're churning through the bullpen. The only spot they're not taking advantage of it is this one last bench spot. And now you talk about this too. So we talked about, okay, well, what do you do if a lefty comes in and they're going against Victor Scott? One, who's right-handed bat? Also now, because Donovan is potentially out today, and maybe this changes when he gets back in the lineup, if you got to pinch hit for Pages later, what are you doing? Right? Like, they need basically 2 pinch hitters, either for Scott, Pages, or Burleson when you go up against potentially a lefty or in a big spot for Pages.
I mean, the only person they would pinch hit for Pages would be Pozo.
Maybe. But what I'm saying is then what do you do then if you do that when you get to Scott's spot against a lefty? Right? You don't have a pinch hitter now.
You're telling him to
so
take
now
the
you're
shot.
just even limited. Like, you only get one shot at this, right? The reason we get 2 guys who can pinch hit for it's one spot right now, and you got to pick that spot wisely. Otherwise, you just burnt your best opportunity.
I also wonder if we see Jordan Walker by the weekend.
I kind of think that might be it.
Rehab start tonight. You get a couple at bats tomorrow, and then you get into it. No, go ahead, BK. You have something to say?
I do, yeah.
Should we turn our mics off?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you hear? You know
Here,
what?
here.
Beat team
Oh,
up.
yeah.
All right, go ahead, BK.
Okay.
Just you on the
So-
YouTube channel.
BK, ladies and gentlemen.
Here's the thing with the Walker situation. I agree with you, Alex. I think you probably see him this weekend. Am I like solo? It's just like the big shot.
Yeah, no,
okay.
we are not here right now.
So with Walker, yeah, I think he's probably going to be back by this weekend. More specifically, next week against the Chicago White Sox. I think he'd probably get 4 games prior to him coming back. He gets 4 games down to the minors. Here's the problem. You need to win this series. This is a really important series, man. Like, you've got to take advantage of what's in front of you. And you're not maximizing. I just flipped over. You're not maximizing your roster right now. And the way to do that is by either calling up Luken Baker or Thomas Ajacci. Those are the guys. And what's frustrating to me is that they could have had Thomas Ajacci for like 2 weeks now playing in the outfields at the minor league level so he could figure it out, right? Maybe you learn he's just not capable of doing that. He's a guy that exclusively works on the infield. I don't buy that. I don't think that's probably the case for him. He seems like somebody that would be comfortable, but whatever. Maybe you find that out. Shouldn't you learn that? It's kind of like the Walker thing a couple of years ago where they didn't put him at third base until like 2 months left in the regular season when they knew he was, or excuse me, they didn't move him from third base to the outfield. They knew he was never going to be a third baseman here. He was behind Donovan. He was behind Gorman. He was behind Arenado. So, and when they traded for Sajasi, he suddenly was behind Sajasi as well. So that's why I think it's crazy that they don't have one of Luken Baker or Thomas Ajacci on the big league roster, and why I think it's really kind of confusing to me why they haven't allowed Thomas Ajacci to play more in the outfield. Do you guys have anything more to say? We'll hit the rewind next. You guys want to interrupt me real quick? Because I feel like it's only fair at this point. I apologize. I've had a really bad day in that regard.
I've checked out on the show
I'll be
completely. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 11.
I'll interrupt instead on the Red Bird report.
314-399.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. Yeah.
314.
You know what, T-Bone? The other thing that we didn't really get to today, I would like to touch back on a little bit later on in the show tomorrow.
What did we skip over today?
Skipped on a couple of things. You know, there was an athletic poll about Ollie being the most hated manager
We're not talking about
in baseball. Skipped over Saravalli's rumor that Kyrou's on the trade block.
I see on the rundown, BK wanted to drool over Sonny Gray's contract. Glad we skipped over that one. Yeah.
The podcast
But then I've
page.
got to do a couple of things also because we've got a podcast coming up of Last Minute Blues podcast next week. Wednesday we record, and we'll put that out on YouTube because that's going to be the trade deadline, not trade deadline, the draft with the trade rumor speculation podcast.
You guys,
Padilla is going to be...
if you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by Schaefer Door Company.
wanted to make sure you wanted me to talk there and you weren't going to throw anything else in before I said it.
We will have a Redbird report that we're recording coming up here in just
Good
about
luck,
an hour
T-Bone.
or so. Yeah,
Jesus.
I apologize in advance.
You
I
might
may
as well
lose
do
my
it.
mind.
You might as well not do it, T-Bone.
I might as well just tell Zane, hey, don't turn my camera on.
I'm good.
You'll be able to
Maybe do a
find
wide
that
shot.
wherever you listen to your podcast. And of course, on YouTube, we've got that great podcast studio that we're recording in today, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. Alex is going to have some Last Minute Blues podcast that he's going to be recording in the podcast studio here pretty soon as well.
That's right. Next
so
week.
be sure
a
to
big episode is on the horizon.
check those out as well. It's been a fun show today. Cardinals are going up against a pitcher tonight that's making his big league debut. He's a right-hander. He's 6'7". He's from the Kansas City area originally, and he throws like 102. It's not going to be an easy match, but, dude, they've got Sonny Gray on the mound. This has to be a win day for the Cardinals. They have got to find a way to stop the bleeding. They have won each of his last 6 starts, I believe it is now. Like 6 consecutive starts that he's been out there. It's not that he has recorded a win. The Cardinals have won those games. They're like 13-2, I think, this year when he starts a game. So they've got to go out there and find a way to get a win tonight against the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, he's the stopper, which is something that it's been great to have for the Cardinals. This has got to be a series win for you. Like, if you split's not the end of the world, but split puts Milwaukee a half a game above you. If you lose 3 of 4 in this, they're a game and a half up on you. And
Would
that's
you say it's an important series?
Would you? That's a fair question.
yeah, I would.
That's why they should maximize the roster, huh?
No, they don't need to. They've got the guys that they need.
Yeah. Why?
They got the
worry?
strikeout stuff.
Why
T-Bone?
worry about it? Just because they got 4 lefties in their bullpen? Like, why?
Watch out for all the righties then.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm going
Can't go any
to
righties out there.
get annoyed seeing how many lefties are going to come out of this bullpen for this 4-game set.
Christian Yelich, big
they're-
righty that they got to be worried about.
They're going to really go through that pen and really attack the bottom of this order. Like, you want to talk about pressure? One, there's probably pressure on Sonny Gray tonight to really start off this series with a bang. They've dropped, I think it's 2 out of their, or 4 series openers here over the last couple of weeks. And it'd be nice to start off on the right foot here in this Milwaukee series. They had the chance to do that potentially in the Toronto one, but things backfired on them. Like, Gray needs to stop the bleeding right now because they go through a little bit of free fall here. They can definitely solidify themselves as sellers, and that's why this series is big, because Milwaukee right on your heels when you're looking at the wild card / the division standings.
They've been leaking some oil. They called this guy up for a reason. They need to stop their own bleeding. They have lost 3 of their last 4. They've lost 4 out of 6. And if you go back to that Cincinnati series, they also lost one of those as well. So they have not been playing their best ball lately. The offense has been struggling a bit. Cardinals pitching needs to help them out here. Sonny Gray on the mound. He's going up against a guy making his big league debut. Cardinals versus the Brewers tonight. If you missed it, there were some transactions that took place. We had our full thoughts on that. You can find it on the podcast.
BK had his full thoughts on that.
The free 101
We-
ESPN app is
Alex
where you go to
told
find
you
it.
what they were. and
Yeah,
then BK
Alex
broke
broke
it
the
down.
news, but then wasn't able to give you his opinion.
For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Again, we've got the Redbird Report, which will be released later on this evening. We will be talking tomorrow to our guy, Mike McKenna,
And Brett Thompson.
and Brett Thompson tomorrow. I'm going to try to get my mind on straight before we record this Redbird Report. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.